it's time to rev up the engine. It's the Eurosport Super Racing Weekend.
Yokohama, power of performance.
With lawn comfort, garden furniture.
And I come over, yeah, can't you feel the vibe right? For us to get it on tonight, stop wasting time. Maybe it's the last chance to get the last dance. And I come over, yeah, can't you feel the vibe right? For us to get it on tonight, stop wasting time. Maybe it's the last chance to get the last dance. I know
Hello, welcome to Jarama. This is round 9 of Eurosport's Super Racing Weekends, 10 race weekends combining the best of the FIA GT Championship, Super Touring, Super Production and Formula Renault single-seat action. Good afternoon, my name's Martin Haven. Alongside me, David Leslie. We'll soon be bringing you the action from the start of the FIA GT race that is at the moment going on in glorious Spanish sunshine. Gloat, gloat. Then we'll bring you highlights of this morning's first Euro Super Touring race and the second race live before finishing the afternoon with the live Super Production race. This is the Jarama circuit, just outside the little town of San Sebastián de los Reyes, in the hills north of Madrid, the capital of Spain. And this 2.87 kilometer lap, 3.8 kilometer lap rather, is a high-speed and technical course in variation. High-speed corners leading onto the long fast straight. It's a John Hugenholz design, so a long fast straight and a tight corner at the end, and some technical corners sweeping around the hills in front of the golf course of Los Reyes. Well, we'll be back with the action in just a moment, so stay with us. Welcome to Jarama, round 9 of Eurosport's Super Racing Weekends. This is round 10 of the FIA GT Championship and the rest of the support action also on their 9th race weekend. The FIA GT's racing at the Spa 24 Hours, a non-Super Racing Weekend championship event, and everybody here in strength.
The FIA GT Championship in Eurosport's Super Racing Weekend. With lease plan, fleet management in motion, Filatice, stretching fibers, fabrics and yarns.
Yokohama, power of performance.
This is the site before the start of round 10 of the 2001 FIA GT Championship. Jarama in Spain. It was wet on Thursday and Friday, dry on Saturday for qualifying and Superpole, and dry now and sunny on Sunday for the start of the 3-hour 10th race in the FIA GT Championship. There are 11 rounds to the championship, 10 of them these 3-hour Super Racing Weekend events, and the 24 hours of Spa that they've already done. Now, the list of drivers didn't go there, and largely as a result of that and some disappointing failures in the early part of the season for the Lister team. Jean-Philippe Belloc and his teammate have already tied up the championship. So Belloc already confirmed as the champion in the GT class with Bouchou. And you can see the other points further down the field. The NGT title, however, remains not only open, but closely fought between the Porsche driver, Luca Riccitelli, and the pair of Ferrari drivers, David Terrian and Christian Pescatore. The Red Bull Porsche and the 360 Ferrari tied in a desperately close points battle for the lead of the championship. And there is the situation, just 5 points between them, and 2 races left to go. It really could go either way, and in fact Dieter Questa, if he has a particularly good pair of races, may well upset the Ferrari's championship challenge as well. Those are the other point scorers, up towards the top of a very long list of point-scoring drivers. And the RWS Motorsport team narrowly leading the J&B competition team. RWS is the team that prepares Luca Riccitelli's car, and therefore the gap between them and the Ferrari J&B team is 5 points as well. That team order still to be decided.
Here at Jarama, there isn't that great a difference between the qualifying times for the NGT cars and the GT cars. Do you think that traffic might be a problem in the race today?
Yes, of course. The racetrack is very small, and to overtake a slower car is not very easy. So I hope I will have a chance to keep my position in the first corner and take advantage for first few laps.
Thank you, Christophe.
A smile from the reigning champion, Christophe Bouchou there, or the 2001 champion. Bouchou and Belloc starting on pole position, fastest in Super Pole. But unfortunately, both listed cars which were in the Super Pole runoffs had problems. Jamie Campbell-Walters was drawn before Super Pole with an engine problem, and Julian Bayliss came in after its warm-up lap with a small oil leak pouring smoke into the cockpit. Starting on the front row of the grid, Vincent Voss and Boris de Richebourg's Belmondo Viper, the number 12 car. David, unlike the pole position car, the Belmondo cars with Dunlop tyres, which they know and we know now from experience, don't have the longevity of performance of the Michelins. And behind them you can see the Ferrari also on Dunlops. The list is further back, starting 11th and 12th on the Michelin tyres like the pole car, and this could turn into being some sort of a tyre battle as well as an inter-car battle.
I think it could, yes. The word on the street when we were talking to them this morning was the fact that the Dunlops were very good for qualifying and very good at the beginning of the race, lasting 5 or 6 laps, and then having that drop-off that you get with new tyres. The Michelins, on the other hand, tend to last something like 15 to 20 laps before they have their drop-off situation. So looking at the front and see what happens, we reckon that the Dunlop guys will make a very good start and then slowly start to go backwards. 2 different cars with the Ferrari in 4th place, the Alain Menu car as it starts. Also on Dunlops, we know that that car's very light on its tyres, so we're not quite sure what's going to happen to that. That one is fairly new on the scene this year, so we've yet to find out if it will use the tyres as hard as the Voss Viper, to be honest.
So it could be interesting stuff. This is the NGT leader.
It's going to be a dry race. You are going to go for a one-stop strategy. There are clouds, but it looks as though it's going to be dry. Is that still your strategy? Can you tell us?
Okay, we are not sure about this because we have not so many information about the free practice, because we did a lot of laps in the wet. But okay, if during the race we will see that if it's possible to go for one stop, we will do it. I don't think so, but it's difficult to say now.
Thank you, Luca.
Well, the significance, David, of Luca's comments is that the Porsches really struggle to make 3 hours on 2 full tanks of fuel. They almost inevitably need a second stop, but the Ferrari, with its good chassis and great fuel economy, should be able to go on one stop. And the question there obviously is, can somehow the Porsches run at a competitive pace and eke out their fuel? That is something that we will have to wait and see. The field running round with Bouchou and Belloc's Viper on pole from the 12 and 11 cars of Belmondo, then the Ferrari, then the 6 NGT cars which made it into the Super Pole ahead of Julian Bailey and Jamie Campbell-Walter, 11th and 12th on the grid. Further back you can see British drivers Steve O'Rourke and Tim Sugden, and they were the slowest of the NGT cars. Sugden rather, like Pescatori, held up by cars on their warm-up laps let out in front of them, rather senselessly and needlessly. Then the Car Sport Holland cars, which did not make it into the Super Pole runoffs. They dominate row 7th, ahead of the other Belmondo car and Lafont and Jarriet's Viper, and then we start to mingle the slower GT cars with the rest of the fast NGT cars. Joining the field this weekend is sharing the 57 Freisinger Motorsport car with Cyril Sauvage is Briton Robin Liddell. I was talking to Robin earlier. He raced here earlier in the season in the PK Porsche car that he normally races in the British Championship as part of the European Le Mans Series. Here he's racing a similar car but on a very different tyre, the Yokohama, and he said it's taking some while to get to grips with the car on an utterly different tyre. Alongside him another Briton, Nigel Smith. So we've got a fair amount of British interest represented in the field. In fact, in the #1 Lister, alongside Jamie Campbell-Walter, no Tom Coronel this weekend, we've got regular British driver of the TVR Speed 12, Bobby Verdon-Rowe. So more British drivers in the field this weekend. Well, the safety car pulling off, and immediately Bouchou jumping away. Watch the Ferrari, looking for a good start there, and trying to work his way through the NGT cars. The lights on the Lister storm there, Julian Bailey and Jamie Campbell-Walter both hoping to work their way through, and Bailey seems to have found a way down the outside, David Leslie, as we watch the Ferrari dispose of one of the two Vipers into the first corner. There goes Bailey right behind him, goes past the Viper as well, into 4th from 11th at the start. That's an impressive getaway.
That really is. I don't know what he did at the start there, but certainly he found a big gap somewhere, and he shot himself right up into 4th, and looking back through that field, somewhere a long way back is still the #1 car, the Jamie Campbell-Walter car, so he didn't get the same space that Julian did. Julian making a fantastic start.
Well, the accepted knowledge here is that because the straight is finished by a right-hander, you have to be on the inside line, so I assume that all the front runners went, oh, I'm on the inside, and Julian perhaps gambling on that. Being a local boy, he grew up around here, his parents still live just outside Madrid, so this, he was saying this morning, jokingly rather, is his local track, although he hasn't raced here for over a dozen years. But yeah, I mean, knowing that, he's obviously, well, I'm 11th, what have I got to lose? You know, the worst that can happen is I'll pick up a few places.
Yeah, the worst that could happen being on the outside is that somebody moves out and you end up on the gravel on the outside. That's always the risk of going there, but if you take that risk and it works, then generally, yes, it does pay off and you pick a few places up. It certainly worked for him on the start of this race.
Great onboard camera with the Ferrari. This is Alain Menu, shares the car with Ricard Rydell. He's bottled up, though. Look at this at the end of the first lap, behind that Belmondo Viper of Emmanuel Clerico that he shares with Anthony Kumpan, and Bouchou already 1 lap in and 2 seconds ahead. Now, oh, that's a monster lockup, and that will come back to haunt Clerico, I'm sure. Huge lockup at the end of the first lap. That's just what you don't want.
Yes, it's doing his tyres no good at all. This circuit, because of the constant braking into radiuses, there's a lot of locking off of wheels and tyres going into these tighter corners, and doing it this early on and for such a long time as well at the end of the straight, they're certainly going to do that tyre no good at all, and it'll only overheat from this point onwards and give him more and more understeer. So I reckon he's probably one of the earlier cars to come in for the pit stop driver change around about the 1 hour mark.
Well, we can see that Menu immediately taking advantage of that, really pressured that lock-up, that mistake from Clerico. Menu up into 2nd in the Ferrari. This car only in its 3rd race in the championship, already a winner, an outright race winner. And the orders, as we were talking about yesterday, the order book seems to be filling up rather nicely. ProDrive have built this car with the intention of building a customer car, and Bailey is through as well to 3rd place. So Clerico really is suffering early on. Clerico, the Belmondo car, he's got Vincent Vos starting behind him in the 12 car, and so they're now down to 4th and 5th. But Ferrari looking very strong here now on its Dunlop tyres, although it's got a fairly kind chassis. We'll have to wait and see how he fares against the Lister on its Michelins. The Lister also very, very kind on its tyres, and perversely that always harms them when the car actually does run in Super Bowl, because it takes 2 or 3 laps to actually really bring them in and up to racing temperature. So Bailey now 2 laps in and perhaps starting to find the sort of grip he's hoping for from these Michelins, right on the back of Menu's Ferrari.
Yes, he's got them warmed up nicely, and he's just taken his time to try and work his way through this field. It didn't take him long to get through the first couple, but he'll just sit there and hound the back of this Ferrari for some time, I would think, and just hoping that the Ferrari will make a mistake somewhere and pick that place up, so as not to have to push too hard and do anything about wearing the tyres out in a hurry.
Well, further back you can see that 3 Viper battle. We just saw a shot of it behind there. There you can see in the back of the background there the 2 Belmondo cars, and they have got one of the 2 Carsport Holland cars. Now they started the row behind the 2 Listers, so that's an excellent start as well, either by Sebastian Bleekemolen or by Mike Hazemans. Not sure which one it is, haven't been able to identify it yet, but starting 13th and 14th, those 2 cars, behind the 12 that are in the top 10 runoff. And in fact, I believe there was another white car at the back of the shot there as well. So I think both Carsport Holland cars are nicely placed. That's very good starting indeed. at the beginning of the year, this concept of Super Bowl, David, everybody said, oh, there's going to be 6 of those slow guys in front of most of the GT field. It'll take us ages to get past. In the end, it's proved not to be the case. The straight line, if you get it, speed of these cars is enough to haul you past any NGT machine.
Yes, we can see a nice picture there of all the cars lined up behind, and you can see from 4th place back to 7th or even 8th there, they're all fairly close together, so that looks like it'd be an interesting battle.
It seems at the moment as if Julian Bailey would go quicker were he ahead of Alan Menu, and the way that they are now being re-caught by Clerico in the number 11 car, the yellow Viper just there, seems to suggest that Bailey is being held up by the Ferrari, and certainly we assume that Bailey in the listers should be around or about the pace of Bouchou, if not quicker. Bouchou's disappeared. I mean, he's checked out and his baggage is already in the back of the car. He's gone to the airport, he's going so far away. Little battle further back, the green and orange machine, the Paco Orti Porsche, leading that little queue with Jarrier and Lafon's Viper in the midst of that. But here again, on board with Vincent Voss in the number 12 Belmondo car, his teammate ahead. And no, in fact, that's Bailey ahead, so they've swapped places. He's got ahead of Clerico as well. That's why the gap has closed. That's why the yellow car is getting closer, because it's the other yellow car. He's got ahead of Clerico, and there you go. He's in 4th place, closing on Bailey and Menu as Bouchou now 3 laps in and 6 seconds up the field. Julian won't be wanting to hear that on the radio, will he?
No, he won't. 2 seconds a lap at the beginning of a race is just a massive amount, and he's certainly stretching his lead. He's using his tyres to the best. We can only hope that he hasn't used them too much and that he actually wears them out before we get to the end of their 1 hour stint.
Look at the background there, in the back of the shot. Look, the 2 white cars now, and Jamie Campbell-Walter inside Clerico. So Clerico has lost 3 places on that lap. And Clerico really had utterly destroyed his tyres at the end of the very first lap. Now, we knew that they were going to start dropping off for around a lap or two's time from now, but he didn't even give them that opportunity to serve him well, utterly routed them right at the very beginning. So now both Car Sport Holland cars have gone fast. Sebastian Bleekemolen ahead of Mike Hazemans, the 4 car ahead of the 3 car, and young Sebastian and Jeroen Bleekemolen sharing the cars with Mike Hazemans and with their dad Michael Bleekemolen. So there's a sort of an older and a younger combination in each car, one of the young brothers in each one. And they are now running, what's that, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, they're 5th and 6th at the moment. Luca Riccatelli leading the NGT class, and he is just behind Clerico actually. So we look forward through the screen. Can we see the Viper there in the distance? Not quite. In fact, he's not behind him. That's why we can't see him. David Clerico, I wonder how long he'll survive. You know, he's 6 laps in and already the NGT cars are queuing up to pass him.
I think he's really struggling. Somewhere fairly soon his team has got to say, you've got a major problem coming and we'll get it sorted. So I can't see it being terribly long before they pull that car in, having made such a mess of his tyres, locking them up into that first corner, that they've gone off just so much quicker than even I was expecting.
Now, we were talking at the beginning of the show about Riccatelli in his sole championship battle with a pair of Ferrari drivers, and Bailey has gone inside Alan Menu inside the Ferrari, and that is Menu taking the place back, exiting the first corner. It looks as though Bailey has had a look down the inside and gone in late and deep and slid wide and not been able to hold it, but clearly then Bailey is being held up by the Ferrari to the extent that after only 4 or 5 laps he has had a look down the inside of Alan Menu, and well, we can't see signs of any contact. Maybe we'll get a chance to see that one again in a moment, but certainly, let's have a look here. What are we seeing? That is that the Russians? Yes, that's Vasiliev in the Russian car run by Pricing and Motorsport, just gyrating there gently at the bottom of the hill at Bugatti. Very easy to come in far too quick there, as we've seen several times in practice. And there you are, perfect example. There you are, Bailey down the inside. Well, did well to not even put a wheel on the dirt, David. Got deep in there, though, didn't he?
He did. He got very deep in there, just a little bit too quick in and couldn't quite get it stopped and hold it to the inside. And Alan Menu just took that opportunity to nip back into where he was, so he's still in 2nd place, and Julian still hounding the back of him. As I said, Julian will try and wait for a mistake. It looks like Alan Menu's making no mistake, so Julian's trying to have to push that a little bit harder to get past there.
Nice cut and thrust battle going on, and spectators, large crowd here incidentally. The Vuelta just finishing in Madrid today with the individual time trial, but still the Spanish motorsport fans, they are numerous and legion, and they are very dedicated as well. The organisers expecting over 40,000 here today for this FIA GT race, and with well, the rain of Thursday and Friday clearing off. Yesterday was a beautiful day, beautiful evening in Madrid, and today equally beautiful day. You can see the grandstands there jammed and all the good vantage points, and there are several around this circuit which promise plenty of overtaking and action, and anybody down at turn one's already seen their fair share, and we're only half a dozen laps in. Well, again, Menu with Bailey right behind him. And again, you can see the Viper behind being caught by the Hazeman's cars. Voss has got Bleekemolen and Hazemans all over the back of him. And Jamie Campbell-Walter on the tail of that little group. Now, Jamie clearly didn't get the start that Julian did. Julian, in fact, coming from the inside of the grid, so he's come across the nose of Jamie at some stage on his run down the outside line. Jamie starting there, but not doing too well. I was talking earlier about Riccatelli. Riccatelli leading the NGT category, and as we saw already passing Clerico. However, the Ferrari of Christian Pescatore is down in 21st place. And Riccatelli is 10th overall at the moment, and in fact even worse for the Ferrari is only 11th in the NGT category, so the Ferrari is a long way back. Now, they may well have decided right from the start to be very cautious, make sure they don't get hit or knocked off, and then run at a pace they know they can make their fuel last half distance on. I have a feeling that Riccatelli knows in his heart of hearts he's not going to go half distance on fuel, and he's just going absolutely balls out for as long as he can until the fuel light comes on, and hope to win it on speed rather than economy. Oh, that is the number 3 car. That is Mike Hazemans. Julian Bailey, Jamie Campbell-Walter was behind him in the Lister. There is Menu, Bailey, there is Voss, there is Sebastian Bleekemolen right behind him having a good look. But let's see if we can see Jamie Campbell-Walter, because the other green and white Hazemans car we've just seen recovering, and Jamie was right behind him. Well, now there's the problem really when you get a bunch of cars, David, chocked up behind somebody as they seem to be behind Menu now, is that it does leave a lot of opportunity for making moves, and that inevitably means there is a perhaps greater chance of not making a successful move.
Well, that's one of those things that happen, but we can see behind us a big gap now, so we can't see either the Hazelman's car or the Jamie Campbell-Walter car anywhere in the background. But when you've got somebody who's quick like Jamie is, at the very back, he's desperate to move up there. You can see his teammate towards the front of that group, and he wants to get himself there, so we're not sure whether he's managed to do that cleanly, or whether the two of them have had it coming together, and that's why one of them, we've seen them sitting there trying to recover from a spin.
Well, as they come across the line again, less than 0.3 of a second between Julian Bailey and Alain Menu, and Bailey had the speed out of the final turn, didn't he? Picked up the toe from Menu, drafted up behind him, went down the inside, telegraphed it nice and early. Menu knew it was coming, and I'm not sure that he felt that it was worth fighting there. If Julian would have run wide, I'm sure he would have dived back inside. But further back on the straight, we do have Jamie Campbell-Walter, so Campbell-Walter's still running, but Mike Hazemans is, well, still struggling. I don't know if he's still in the gravel. The cameras haven't picked it up, but he's not come across the line yet. So Hazemans off the track and potentially out of the race. Well, almost certainly, I would think now, out of any chance of winning the race. Carsport Holland cars carrying a lot of weight because of their recent successes. And in fact, I think that the 3 car is on the full 100 kilo maximum weight limit. So they are struggling on that basis as well.
Further back, when we've seen a glimpse at the end of the straight of the second Lister car, he'd only had one headlight working, so I'm not sure whether the other one has burst a bulb or maybe is broken because of some damage.
Well, good point. He was behind Mike Hazemans, wasn't he? And Hazemans has gone off again, or is he still? No, that's it. No, he has gone off again because it's a completely different part. That is the Le Mans turn that is behind the pits. So he's gone off and has buried himself. Look, he's got the engine running and desperately signalling, come on, push me back, get me out of here. But it looks as though that may take some time. Riccatelli comfortably leading the NGT class still. And Riccatelli with no fear from behind. He's got none of the NGT cars for company. Behind him is one of the GT spec Porsches, one of the 911 GT2 cars. So he doesn't need to worry too much about that. And I'm sure there you are, that's the PSI racing car. It's a different class, a different make of 911, if you like, a much older version, the GT2 version of the car, which nobody really seems to be able to make work at any pace anymore. And that 18 car is struggling to stay with the smaller, less powerful NGT car, despite having Kurt Mollikens at the wheel, who is no slouch himself. Now, on board with Christian Pescatore, and he is still in the 20s. In fact, he's in 20th place now. He's picked up 1 or 2 places from his lowest ebb, and he is right behind Timo Bernhardt. And this is an interesting novelty, because the 76 car, the teammate of the Red Bull car that leads the class and the championship here, about to be passed by his teammate's arch rival. Well, how clean will he be? I don't suppose Timo Bernhardt, one of Porsche's favoured young guns, will be exactly waving the Ferrari through with open arms, but on the other hand, I don't think he would be well advised to be too obstreperous, because settling the championship that way would be no way at all of settling the championship. So just checking, in fact, on my list of weights, the number 3 Car Sport Holland car is the only car with maximum weight penalty. They are carrying 100 kilos, so that off as well. Bleekemolen in the gravel still, and they will struggle to recover from that one. However, their number 4 car with Sebastian Bleekemolen, I mean, Hazelman's in the 3 car, is off in the gravel. Sebastian Bleekemolen in the 4 car, going very well inside the top 6 at the moment. Riccitelli leading the race. Don't forget, if you want to email us questions, suggestions, or even answers, actually, which would be quite handy if we're asking questions, then you can do. The Car Guys at Eurosport.com, the Car Guys, all one word, at Eurosport.com, or you can follow the race through the Eurosport.com website, and you can email us through that. So we've already had a number correcting us on our assumptions about officials after yesterday's Super Pole, among them Alan Jenkins, saying that, in fact, certainly in Britain, officials who make mistakes, if they are RAC MSA licensed officials, do get reprimanded, and they are judged on their mistakes, rather like professional referees are nowadays in soccer. But, well, if it was just a chap with a flag at the end of the pit lane who's not paid as a marshal, then unfortunately there's not really much the organisers can do if he makes a mistake. However, that's all water under the bridge for Tim Sugden and for Christian Pescatore, and Luca Riccitelli now comfortably in charge of the NGT class. But with the pace he's going, David, I do feel that this is a race on outright speed for him. He is the hare, if you like, against the tortoise of the Ferrari.
I think there was quite a bit of discussion between the various Porsche teams as to what they're going to try and do to try and beat this Ferrari and try and keep it away from winning this race. So 1 or 2 of them, I think, may drive a little bit slower in order to get through the race with only 1 pit stop, 1 refueling stop, in order to try and beat that Ferrari, because the Ferrari we know is very good on its fuel, and we know every race so far it's managed to do it on 1 stop, where all the Porsches have a second short sort of splash and dash type stop, just to top it up with a little bit of fuel to get it through the last 15-20 minutes. So Riccitelli, by looking at his pace, then yes, I would say he's definitely pushing as hard as possible to try and win the race from the front, but somehow I doubt it that he'll ever get anywhere near 1 stop.
Well, we've just seen the race leader go past the other Ferrari, in fact, the other 360 Modena. That's the 63 car of Andrea Gabagnati, and that is considerably further down the order than the 62 car. And at the moment, in fact, one of the Porsches that had hoped to try and economise and make it through on 1 stop only is in the pits already. That's the 69 Ridolfi Orlando car of Andrea Chiesa, just 3 laps into the race, and he's in with some sort of engine problem. It won't run over 7,000. Well, while that will certainly save fuel, it means it's actually prohibitively dangerous to drive it at such a reduced pace on the track. Julian Bailey closing in now in 2nd place on the race leader, and leaving this man behind, Alan Menu in the Ferrari, still in 3rd place and still with those Vipers behind. And look at that, Sebastian Bleekemolen in the white car didn't quite get by. Vincent Voss held on the inside, but only just. Bleekemolen seems to regard every corner around this track, David, as a potential passing place. Maybe there's something that in this John Hugenholtz designed track that only Dutch drivers actually understand. I don't know, some Dutch secret written into its runes, who can tell?
I think it's one of those things whereby if you try anywhere and everywhere, eventually the guy in front will get so dizzy looking in his mirrors trying to find out where you are, he'll simply not look in front of him and make a mistake, and then you pick up the place. But yes, he's all over the car in front and giving it as hard a time as possible, and as with most people, I'm sure that they will make a mistake eventually, and the Bleekemolen car will manage to make it through into that fourth position.
He's certainly piling on the pressure, isn't he? Now the Ferrari passes the Ferrari. Nice little moment of exactitude. 550 Maranello versus 360 Modena. And we may see both of those marks of car in the American Le Mans Series next year. Certainly the ProDrive team have built a second 550 Maranello. It's already in the States, ready for next weekend's Petit Le Mans 10-hour enduro, or as I think the team see it, shop window for their goods. They have received a lot of interest, both by word of mouth and also directly to ProDrive, not just from teams that would like to run the cars, but the fans and the organisers would love to see Ferraris back in the American Le Mans Series, back in American sports car racing, after the 333 SP sort of fell from competitiveness in the States. They've been wanting another Ferrari, and this is bad news for Jamie Campbell-Walter, the #1 lister, coming down the pit road. Far too early, surely, for a pit stop, only some 25 minutes into the race. And there is Lawrence Pierce on the left-hand side of the headset, and now the nose of the car. They're looking at the left front corner. It's damaged. You can see that there is damage. But Jamie Campbell-Walter reporting a strange vibration in the car. Now, this is what happened after qualifying yesterday. They believed that there was something going wrong with the race engine they had in at that stage. And in fact, they've spent the whole night, as Jamie gets out of the car, they've spent the whole night changing the engine and all its ancillaries and working on the gearbox. Jamie, in fact, had a little clutch union weeping in the car on the grid. But with its power shift up change and so on, you see Bobby Verdenro's teammate there has just hurriedly got ready when the car came in. Hasn't even got his time to have his gloves on, but I don't think the car's going anywhere. And Jamie Campbell-Walter out of the race into the pits. Behind him there comes the #3 car. So that is Mike Hazeman's finally back out of that gravel trap. My goodness, that's a long way back. So Hazeman's coming in as well. But I think that is the end of the #1 car. And incidentally, for Anorax, we may have touched on the way in the past that Lister have used the stock of V12 engines originally that was built by TWR for the Jaguar Le Mans program, and are still using some of those components. In fact, the engine in that car that's just pulled in is using the block that was in the winning car at Le Mans in 1988. Lawrence Pierce told me this morning. So there's a nice little bit of history, unfortunately not quite repeating itself, but those old race cars, they're all still around somewhere in their various bits and pieces. So now then, David, Bouchou leading, but Julian Bailey reeling him in, and the gap is really coming down. Bailey right on the tail of the race leader, and Bouchou looks like sliding the tyres.
Yeah,
an awful lot.
Bouchou's been pushing very hard at the beginning. We've seen that when he was like 2 seconds a lap quicker. We've stabilised now at about 9 seconds, the difference between first and second. But Bouchou's starting to slide all over the place, and the back of that car's really starting to step out. So maybe he's pushed a bit too hard on the front, and now he's starting to pay for it.
So Julian Bailey running down our race leader. Bouchou has led from pole position. Bailey from 11th on the grid now in second place and chasing him hard. Join us for more action from Jarama after this break as we're back in Eurosport's Super Racing Weekend. Don't go away. Welcome back live to Jarama, round 10 of the FIA GT Championship. Still in progress now. As we left you before the break, we showed you how the Viper rather, of Christophe Bouchou had led from pole position. It was being reeled in at growing rate by the second-placed Lister of Julian Bailey. The #1 car of Jamie Campbell-Walter had retired with what the team thought in the end was a strange vibration from an engine problem. Lap 23, 36 minutes into the race. Bailey's chase is complete. Bouchou about to take the lead of this race for the first time, and Bailey by this stage was lapping a second and a half quicker, and in fact in the previous 3 laps had taken nearly 8 seconds out of Christophe Bouchou, the race leader. Bailey cool, calm and very steady in the inside under braking. Bouchou sliding around on the outside line, and the Viper clearly in tyre trouble. 10 laps later, 51 minutes into the race, Alain Menu in the Dunlop-tired Ferrari passing the Michelin-tired Viper of Christophe Bouchou, clearly indicating what a stunningly good chassis job the ProDrive engineers have done. This car can nurse its Dunlops better than the Viper's Michelins can last, and that is unusual. Julian Bailey coming in to the pits to hand over to teammate Nicholas Springer, and Springer having trouble finding his way out past the 76 Red Bull car, the teammate of the NGT class leader. So with the number 2 car into the pits, Alain Menu in the Ferrari, the race leader, at about the approach of the 1 hour mark. By this stage, Bouchou had been in, Bailey coming in just after the hour mark, and the Viper, the Ferrari, staying out a little later. The Viper there of de Richebourg passing Riccatelli. Riccatelli by this stage yet to stop before the hour and a half mark, was in second overall, so de Richebourg, who had stopped, goes by. Julian Bailey ready as Nicholas Springer comes in for the second stop for the Lister team. This was after some 20 minutes at the wheel, and Springer having trouble with the car, trouble it seems with the gears. And then the NGT car of Vassiliev, we saw him off earlier on, going off heavily there, ripping the radiators off the front of the car, all this water pouring out of the car. There's the several £1,000s worth of front radiators. And then Sylvain Noël spinning his car, and the Perspective Racing entry, the 55 car of Michel Neugarten spinning in avoidance after Noël went off on the water left by Vassiliev's car. Into the pits, Sebastian Bleekemolen going very slowly indeed, and Bleekemolen had done such a good job with that car. He had been up to second place at one stage before the stops, but coming in and chugging to a halt from 5th position. So Sebastian Bleekemolen's hard work undone with problems with the car. He was at 5th place at that stage. Alain Menu by lap 77. After the second stops, he was rejoining as the race leader. Second place was Vincent Vos ahead of Bouchou and Clerico. And Pescatori leading the NGT class. Pescatori stopping just after the hour and a half mark, but Riccatelli had to go in 20 minutes before halfway, such was his fuel consumption pace. And this is the situation at the moment. Alain Menu is your race leader in the Ferrari. Don't forget, the Ferrari already wants a race winner this year. In second place is Vincent Vos, and Vos is some 53.7 seconds back. Third place is Christophe Bouchou, 1 minute and 20 behind the leader. Fourth place, Emmanuel Clerico, 1 minute and 26 behind the leader. And fifth place, Julian Bailey. Bailey a lap down, and the car has now made a third pit stop. David Leslie down in the pits at the moment to find out why Bailey has come back in again. But we believe that Nicholas Springer was struggling in the car. I believe he was struggling with the gear change, is the message that we had from our people in the pits earlier on. And he came in early after about 20 minutes to hand over to Julian Bailey. Now, the rules are that there is no minimum distance that you can drive, but the maximum you can do in one stint is 55% of race distance. And so Springer would have had to have stayed out until 9 minutes before an hour and a half into the race, and I think they managed to do that. Springer was certainly struggling in terms of keeping up the pace that Bailey had set in the opening laps of the race, which was absolutely blistering. Well, on board with the Ferrari, you're hearing the glorious sounds there of that V12, and there is Vincent Vos's second-placed Viper, the familiar V10 Hal. Now we're getting emails in. The car guys at Eurosport.com if you want to ask us anything or send us any information. And one of our correspondents from Ireland just asking, is there any news about potential Mondello Park Super Racing weekend next weekend? Well, I certainly haven't heard anything, although who knows, who can tell? There are people from Knock Hill here, in fact, at the track, but then this is one of their tracks, so that's not necessarily a surprise. And David, I'll give David Leslie 30 seconds. He's just run back up the stairs. We're on the far side of the circuit, away from the pits. Now, my surmise as to why Julian Bailey will have brought the Lister in again is that it was time for its regular fuel stop. David's sort of nodding his head, so we'll get to that. We'll get to that one in a moment. David, if you can breathe now, tell us the story behind Julian's second stop.
Julian had a problem with the clutch early on, and he came in and gave it to Nicholas. When Nicholas was driving, he found it very difficult, so he brought it back in early and put Julian back into the car.
So Julian was
These
back
are big
at the
steps
helm.
up here.
They are big steps up here.
And Julian had a problem with both the seat, and they know they needed a splash and dash before the finish, so they brought it in early rather than wait till the end for the splash and dash.
Right.
Fixed the seat at the same time. They still have a gearbox problem, so they're running around, still going very quickly, but not where they want to be.
They are indeed going very clear. I'll switch off David's mic so he can pant for air a bit more. It was a sterling job. He's been down 3 flights of stairs, down the grandstands, across the tunnel, run down the pit and run back in about 4 minutes. You can tell he's still in training, can't you? Julian Bailey at the moment, 5th overall, 137.9 his last lap. Race leader Alain Menu, 137.3. So despite his problems, Bailey going quickly as well. And with all the traffic now, yes, thank you very much, Director, getting away from that. With all the traffic, it is increasingly difficult, and you can see the amount of marbles offline as well, all those bits of rubber. As the tyres corner and the tyres slide, they do roll little microscopic grains of rubber off, and those build up into little balls of rubber that fall off on the side of the track. And that makes the track a lot narrower, effectively, because if you run on those, even if you don't slide off onto the dirt off them, they do get stuck to your tyre, and you get great big lumps of extra weight on your wheels. And you know, on your own road cars, what it feels like when the wheels are out of balance and the steering's shaking, you know, in corners and under braking and everything. And, well, you can imagine how much worse it is in a race car that's much more responsive and finely tuned. Luca Riccitelli, incidentally, is second now in NGT. David Terian's Ferrari leads it, and they are 36 seconds apart. And Riccitelli and Terian good to go to the end of the race on fuel. It could be a good battle. Join us for more in a minute. The fabulous sights and sounds on board with the Ferrari at Jarama. Beautiful summer sunshine, as you can see. And Alain Menu, the race leader. Ricard Rydell running the middle stint in this car. Menu starting and finishing. And there's a driver pairing that get on very well with each other, don't they? They drive at the same pace, and they really do enjoy each other's company. They're great fun to be around, and they clearly are loving this Ferrari. And David, I bet you'd be loving it too, wouldn't you?
Yes, what a fantastic car to drive. New this year, obviously. ProDrive just built it. First race they didn't finish, but since then they've been doing extremely well with it, even winning a race at Nürburgring. So it looks like, unless they have some problems, they could do the same here. They're 50 seconds ahead at the moment, ahead of Vincent Voss with one of the Belmondo Vipers. So fantastic looking car, fantastic sounding car. And as you said, with Ricard Rydell and Alain Menu in it, two very good drivers, both ex-British touring car champions. And they're using their ability as a team to do some very quick pit stops. We've seen in the first round of pit stops, their stop was extremely quick, as was their in and out laps compared to some of the other teams. So very professional all the way around on that team.
Luca Riccitelli about to try and put a lap on the Paco Orti Porsche, the 72 car. Wolfgang Kaufmann at the wheel of that one, and not particularly worried about giving Riccitelli much room there, was he? I think Wolfgang's feeling is that if Luca wants to go by, then he'd better overtake him, not expect him to be waved by. Well, I'm not sure that necessarily forcing the race leader in your class to run out of road into the dirt is the most gentlemanly act, and I should think that Riccitelli will probably want to have a little word with Mr. Kaufmann when he gets out of the car at the end of the race.
Yeah, when you've got two Porsche drivers there racing each other and one putting the leading Porsche off the road, it's not really very good. And when you're fighting against a Ferrari for the lead, you would have thought they would have been nicer to each other, the Porsche drivers, but obviously maybe they've had words in the past in some of the formula or something, but making him work very hard, pushed him right out here. And on there you see what you were just saying about little black marbles. You get onto that rubber, and the minute you hit that rubber you lose the grip. It's like actual marbles you're going onto, and you pick that rubber sticks to your tyre, and while they're running on Michelin, so some of that rubber might be Pirelli or Yokohama or Dunlop or whatever. So all of a sudden now he's got some dirty tyres he needs to clean, which will take about a lap to do before he can even get back onto the tail of the green Porsche.
Right behind him is now the Labour Competition Viper of Christophe Bouchou, the third place man, but I was going to point out the Porsche of Tim Sugden, who is next up in shot. Sugden, in fact, in sixth place in the NGT class, just ahead of Nigel Smith, but he is chasing Wolfgang Kaufmann's car, the green and orange Paco Orti racing machine, and that is for fifth place. Now he's about to be lapped by Emmanuel Clerico. Clerico, you recall, absolutely destroyed his tyres at the beginning of this race, right at the end of lap 1 or beginning of lap 2 down here. And there you can see them on the first few turns as the Menu Ferrari closes in from behind. That's how far Menu is. This is Farina the hairpin we're just at, which is the fourth turn on the corner, and Menu already out of turn 1 and heading to turn 2, so he's the better part of a lap ahead. In fact, he's 50 seconds ahead of Vincent Vos and a minute and 18 ahead of this car you're looking at now, Emmanuel Clerico. He's only lapping in 1 minute 37.38, so he's in fact just 20 seconds down the road behind Clerico from putting the third place man, Bouchou rather, from putting him a lap down. So very convoluted sentence there, but you get the drift. Menu is a long way ahead, so much so in fact that he's in danger of being able to spot the men who are behind him in front of him. Oh dear, that didn't help either, did it, really? So what else is going on in the race while you watch these pictures? Menu leading from Vos by 50 seconds, as we said. Bouchou third. Clerico in the 11 car, which this is, in fourth place. And he's only 2 seconds behind Bouchou. You can see them in traffic together, working their way through. And reasonably even battle at the moment on lap times. Bouchou 1:36.6. Clerico 1:35.8 on the previous lap. So despite the Bouchou car on its Michelin being perceived as the car which should have better pace this far after their final stop, and we've got about 20 minutes to go, less than 20 minutes to go in fact, we've got 13 minutes to go. Still Clerico is closing in and looking for that podium position, and the way that Bouchou's tyres and performance dropped off at the end of the first stint, he may not be out of luck either. He's only got 3 seconds to close. Bailey in fifth place, a lap down, so I'm afraid I think that is his inevitable finishing position. Sixth place is Belmondo in the third of the Belmondo Vipers, so 3 in the top 6 there, 2, 4 and 6. And in seventh place, Terrian leading Riccatelli. Terrian in the Ferrari, Riccatelli in the Porsche, and the battle between them, well, Riccatelli last lap 1:39.2 despite being shoved off, and Terrian 1:43.5. David, they are definitely racing a Ferrari to make it last on fuel.
Yes, they are. They've done that all year long. That Ferrari, they've discovered that if they just take it that little bit easier at the beginning and do that pace all the way through, the same pace all the way through the race, they can get there on just a one stop compared to the Porsches too. And they're certainly good at that.
Well, Terrian, in his defence in the Ferrari, has just done a 1:39.4 on this lap. Riccatelli yet to come across the line. He's some 32 seconds back, but his previous lap 1:39.2. So Terrian clearly catching traffic on his lap, and Terrian with Riccatelli still to come across the line behind him. So there is about a 30-second gap between them. And at that rate of catching, Riccatelli will not catch the Ferrari before the end, nor will anyone else catch the race-leading red Ferrari out front. Back live at Jarama, round 10 of the FIA GT Championship. The penultimate race in 3 weeks' time will be at Estoril in Portugal for the final rounds. The championship in the GT class already decided in favour of Christophe Bouchou. But in the NGT class, still open. Luca Riccitelli leads here, 51 points to 46. David Terrian and Christian Pescatori in the Ferrari are the second place men in the championship, but they're leading the race. So they will gain on Luca Riccitelli and David Terrian, but I can't remember how the points are scored. And so as David looks in his little bundle of notes, we will figure out who will have the lead at the end of this race, because they will almost undoubtedly finish first and second with the Ferrari ahead of the Porsche in NGT, and they'll be 7th and 8th overall. This Ferrari will be the race winner, Alain Menu, unless something goes drastically wrong, having now cursed him. He's 50 seconds ahead of Vincent Vos, who in turn is 20 seconds ahead of Christophe Bouchou here, the 2001 champion in the Labre competition Viper. Bouchou and Belloc in the Viper in third place, ahead of Manuel Clerico's car in fourth. And in the NGT classification, it's 10-6-4-3-2-1, so they will close 4 points on a 5-point lead on Luca Riccitelli. So Luca Riccitelli will lead by 1 after this race, according to me. So there you go, that's the way it'll work out in NGT. A 1-point championship lead going into the last race. That's the kind of odds we like. That's very good indeed. So again, you can see Christophe Bouchou here, third place, sliding a lot. I mean, not just a little bit, sliding a lot. He's now only 5 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Clerico, and that's because he pulled out a 36.5 compared to Clerico's 1:38.0 on the last lap. Clerico in traffic in the 11 car, the sister car to this machine, which now runs second place, and as they all are, but Clerico clearly suffering there behind a couple of slower cars. But still, with 8 minutes left and 4.8 seconds to catch, I suppose there is a slight chance that we might get that change for third place if Clerico can really up the ante in the closing minutes.
It just takes somebody about marker they're trying to pass to slow one of them down, and all of a sudden you could have 2 cars nose to tail on the circuit on the last lap. So yeah, very easily done to have such a close finish at this point.
Well, here you see the onboard camera view and what it looks like from the outside. Follow the car round the track as we sweep down this long left-handed no-name section into Bugatti. Now this is a very tricky corner, downhill fast on the way in, and then from the apex starts to climb immediately as you come out of that left-handed hairpin and up towards one of the most critical sequences on the corner, Monza, double right-hander rather, way away from the curb on the first part, because the exit of the second part is all important. It takes you through the tunnel turn, which is onto the long, fast front stretch, and that straight is vital for top speed. It's the only really long straight section on the track. There are a couple of long high-speed sections around the back, but they are twisting, climbing and diving. This is a classic John Hugenholtz track like Zandvoort, long front straight, tight corner at the end with heavy braking, should produce overtaking, and boy has it, plenty of that so far this season.
You were saying a little earlier about the Ferrari and the pro-drive people taking their car, the car that's currently leading, their new one, over to America to race in the American Le Mans Series, and with the hope of having the Ferrari 360 also there next year. Someone has indeed built a Ferrari 360 in Britain to take over there for next weekend. So in America, for the first time, you will have both an NGT and a GT car racing in the American Le Mans Series, as well as what we see here first and foremost in the FIA GT Series.
Big bunch of traffic for Alain Menu to negotiate, and he does so safely. Menu not going to Petit Le Mans, he's going to be racing in the German DTM, Deutsche Tourenwagen Masters final round next weekend at Hockenheim, so he will not be on DTM duty. So it'll be Ricard Rydell. I believe Peter Cox is going over as well. Is that right? I think that's what they told us, yes.
Peter Cox is going over, and the third driver, because it's such a long race, a 10-hour race, the third driver they're using is Mark Dewey, who drove the Raffinelli Ferrari earlier this year in the FIA GT Series.
So Dewey's jack of all trades, of course, started his career as a rally driver, and he's been a racing driver and a touring car star as well in his time. In fact, he's driven almost as many different variants of car as David Leslie, I think. David's forays onto the loose have been purely unintentional, though, I think. Never designed that way, have they?
No, never designed that way at all. No, Mark has been around, as you said, for a long time. I was a teammate of his in the late 1980s when we were racing for the little Eurosport team in the World Sports Car Championship. So yes, he's still thoroughly enjoys his racing like me, and turns up all over the place.
Yeah, it's fun to see him shove his way into an Akira Kos car, folding his legs up under his chin. Nearly as tall as me, certainly taller than David even. 2.7 seconds now, incidentally, between Bouchou and Clerico, and 5 minutes and 30 seconds exactly remaining in the race, plus however long it takes them to get to the line, which will be another minute and 20 seconds behind Alain Menu. So in fact, 5 minutes, they've got about 6.5 minutes to sort that one out, and Clerico is catching Bouchou. He was 1.5 seconds quicker, no, 1.1 seconds quicker on that previous lap than Bouchou. So there is definitely a chance still of 2 Belmondo cars on the podium behind the Ferrari, and that will be perhaps a result they would have been quite happy to be handed at the beginning of the afternoon, I think.
Yes, right at the very beginning they made rather a mess of it, so they've come out of very, very well at the end of the day.
And in the NGT battle, still 26.5 seconds between Terian in the Ferrari and Riccitelli in the Porsche. So Terian lapping exactly a second slower than Riccitelli that time, but at that rate Riccitelli would need to be racing until halfway through the next Super Touring Car race to even catch him, never mind overhaul him. So unfortunately for the Porsche team, no matter how hard they have driven, the time it's taken them to come into the pits that extra once has made all the big difference. We reckon they've lost probably around a minute or so coming in and out of the pits and doing their stops, and that is all it takes. Here is David Terian, who took over from Christian Pescatori at the halfway stage, or a few minutes after the hour-and-a-half mark, and Riccitelli in second place. Luigi Moccia in the 54 car in third place, and they're doing a very good job there. One of our correspondents, in fact our Irish correspondent, whose email address is just a series of numbers, so good afternoon 08794, asking whether the V8 GTR BMW would be racing in the FIA series next year. Probably not.
Ricard, qualification wasn't so good here in Spain, but with just 5 minutes left, it looks as though it's going to be a convincing victory for you.
It looks very good. Of course, if nothing happens now, we should be there, but yeah, it's been really good. We had 2 very good pit stops. I think we got like 10 seconds in each pit stop, and then the races have been very good. The car is quite consistent, so I'm very pleased.
Thank you, Ricard.
Well, Alain Menu there doing the donkey work, so Ricard Rardel looking as fresh as a daisy, as perhaps he might. And as he said, barring any disasters, Ferrari really has pretty much been the car to catch all weekend. When it hasn't been the fastest, it's still been right up there among the others. And fastest in the warm-up this morning in dry conditions. They had a little bit of trouble in the wet despite doing most of their pre-race testing at Pembrey. Not pre this race, but pre-debut testing at Pembrey, which is almost inevitably rainy, being in Wales, triggering a flood of emails. And yes, David gives me one of those sideways Scottish looks, just in case I go on to insult Scotland next. But a good job certainly all round by the Ferrari, and the Ferrari running with smaller restrictors this weekend as well. They've been hampered because of their last victory, and they are running a smaller air restrictor, which means less air into the engine and therefore a little less power. And next weekend, next race, they'll be running with the 2002 spec airboxes. Airboxes this year can be any size you like. It's the restrictor, those little 2 silver rings you can see at the front in the grille. That's where the air actually goes into the car. You can put those wherever you like, forwards, backwards, as far forward as of the engine as you like, whatever, to try and get a good ram effect. And anybody who knows a little bit about engines will know that by tuning the length of an exhaust, you can help produce power on an engine to suit the wavelength of the gases coming out. Well, you can do the same with the inlet of an engine, and that's very much what the current airbox does on the ProDrive car, as on many others. Next year, however, there is a maximum volume for the airbox, a maximum distance in front of the engine. You can have your restrictor and various other things, and they'll be running in Estoril with a new style airbox to give them a bit of a head start. Now look at this. This is the battle for third place, and again, you saw how much Bouchou was sliding there, really struggling. The car, no, he's off! And in a move almost reminiscent of one we've seen several times this year with the Viper in the British GT Championship of Tim Harvey sliding off the track out of tyres. Bouchou just asking, well, what you would ask at the beginning of a stint of his tyres, and they could not bring enough grip to stay on track. Bouchou asking a fraction too much of his worn-out rubber, and off he goes. The camera's at least catching that one, as Clerico doing a great job reeling him in. But again, you can see Bouchou is still pushing and hoping perhaps to, I don't know, maybe that Clerico will destroy his tyres, but certainly not much chance of Alain Menu destroying his. 29 seconds to go now on the clocks. This is the white flag lap for American race fans, the last lap of the race. Menu will take the checkered flag next time round, but Van Sandbol's the race leader, in second place rather, behind Menu the race leader, and Clerico up to third. And still with the Belmondo car in sixth position, so all three Belmondo Vipers in the top six. They're now 2, 3 and 6. And the positions in NGT, well, Riccatelli, let's see out of the windscreen what we can see. I don't expect it to be a Ferrari. He'll be able to see the crowd on his way round the circuit, but it will not be the Ferrari that he is desperately chasing, who is in front of him, not within his sight anyway. Alain Menu is right behind the Red Bull car though, and nips neatly past, or will nip neatly past probably before the last corner. Ricard Rydell watching the monitors, and Menu behind. In fact, he's eased off to allow Jean-Pierre Jerier and Francois Lafont's car to go by. Jerier is in 12th place overall and no threat at all, and Menu cruising it to the line now, David, and being very easy on the car, staying out of this potential disaster ahead. Look, there's the Harbour Racing car, the red and white machine, which we've already seen spin a couple of times in this race. They didn't want to be involved in any of that, and I think a very sensible idea, enjoying this drive to the line, and a chance to round out what has been a fairly successful weekend so far for them, with a very successful race from Ricard Rydell and Alain Menu and the Pro Drive team. Victory number 2 for the Ferrari 550 Maranello, and I'm sure congratulations already streaming over the airwaves. So very good job done all round there. And the Pro Drive phones will be in meltdown phase by Monday afternoon as people phone in their orders for these cars for next year. They look so glorious, they sound so glorious. I have to say, I'm surprised that we haven't seen any more of these 360 Modenas either. It is clearly showing itself, in Europe at least, to be the car that has the beating of the Porsche 911 GTRS. Whether it will have the beating of the BMW M3 V8 GTR or not remains to be seen in America. But to go back to our earlier correspondence call, I'm not sure that Stefan Rattel is very keen on having BMW super duper cars in the championship. I think he quite likes the fact that the 360 Modena is a production-based car, and the car existed before the racer, and ditto with the GT3R, whereas the BMW road car, well, yeah, you know, we've yet to see one on sale anywhere, and that apparently won't happen until right by the deadline in February. So Bouchou in 4th place then, as the 62 car comes to a halt in front of the JMB GSA team. A job well done. They knew what they had to do. They didn't deviate from their task. They drove at their own pace that would give them the victory they needed, and it has done exactly that. The tortoise of the JMB team has beaten the hare of the RWS Motorsport Porsche outfit, and so it's Ferrari winning in GT and Ferrari winning in NGT. A nice little bit of symmetry there. So Alain Menu enjoying his lap on the way back into the pits, and confirmation there of that top 3, the 2 Belmondo cars once more on the podium. And those cars, whatever the deficiencies that they may have in the tyre department against the Michelin tyres, which generally tend to hold their abilities a little longer, you can certainly say that they are consistently front runners. They manage generally to stay out of trouble, and they manage generally to finish in the top half dozen with all their cars, and that's a pretty impressive job of preparation.
Yes, those cars, there's the 3 of them out there, and they always look absolutely immaculate when they turned out at the race meeting. They come here and in their bright yellow colours, the Belmondo cars, and it's one thing, you can always spot them. The only problem is because there's 3 of them, you can never tell which is which. They do have small colours on the wing mirrors and a little bit on the top of the windscreen, but very difficult to see when you're looking for it.
Well, that's because we're getting a bit older, David, and we're going to need glasses soon. Obviously, the keen-eyed members of the audience with their 48-inch widescreen TVs can make them out a little easier. But in fact, one of our correspondents by email saying, instead of having slightly different coloured numbers, why don't they have different coloured door panels on the NGT cars so we can tell them apart at a glance? Well, that's a very good question. I don't know why they don't do simple things like that to help make everybody's life a lot easier. Ricard Riedel now up to 9th in points. Riedel is the consistent common factor in that car because, of course, Alain Menu doesn't do all the races, nor does Peter Cox. Menu has done the races so far, up to 9th in points. But victory for him and Riedel. We'll catch up with them after this break. Alain Menu darting away from the camera. Let's hear from him now.
Alain, that's your first win in the car. It's Ferrari's second win in the last 3 races. How was the race? And it seems as though the Dunlop tyres were working well today.
Yeah, I mean, everything was working really well. I mean, we had a good first stint. I mean, I got the two Vipers at the start or in the first 2 laps. And then the guys did a fantastic pit stop, and then Ricard had a big lead. He had a big lead, and he was driving very quickly. So then when he handed the car back to me, I mean, we had like 50-second lead. So then I'm afraid I was just cruising. Yeah. So it's fantastic for Port Drive, for everybody. You know, I'm very happy.
Thanks, Alain. Let's just bring Ricard in as well. Ricard, it seems as though the extra weight penalty that Ferrari was carrying today didn't make too much of a difference.
Well, I think next time we've got 100 kilos, it's going to be even more difficult. We weren't the fastest car in qualifying, and there was other cars going quicker in the race, but I think we just did a really good job with the pit stops. The team did a good job, and we did consistent lap times, no mistakes, so that's why we won. We weren't the quickest car out there, but the most reliable one, and finished well.
Thank you both of you.
So Alain Menu saying earlier on that he was not that worried about missing Petit Le Mans. He likes the sprint races. He doesn't feel that he's old enough yet for the Enduros, but doing a pretty fair stab at doing this one. And there you can see the winning drivers and the Pro Drive All-Stars team chalking up their second win from 3 starts. Pretty impressive beginning to their season. Incidentally, Mark Aspin wanted to know by email if we have dates and venues next year's series yet for the Super Racing Weekends. You don't honestly think they tell me anything like that, do you? If we do have them by Estoril, we will tell you. Now let's try and catch up with David Terrian. He, of course, the winner with Christian Pescatori in NGT.
David, it seems as though the one-stop strategy was the best strategy to have out there today.
Yes, that's a very good strategy, in fact, but we were not sure in the beginning of the race that we couldn't do only one stop. In fact, we wanted to do a splash just before the end of the race, but as Christian did a very good start, he had a very low consumption, so we changed the strategy during the race, and they told me on the radio not to push very hard on the engine, just to save some fuel, and I think we had a good margin on the end, so it's really perfect. And the team did a really, really good job, because we were not quick on the last 2 races, but there it was very good for the race.
And Christian, now with that win, it was an important win, because you're only 1 point behind in the championship now.
Yeah, now we're going to the Estoril, so with a fantastic car, with a fantastic team, because in Estoril we have the same strategy with one stop, so I'm very happy now. So David and the team have a fantastic job.
Thank you.
At Estoril, David, I would consider probably to be a very similar circuit with one good long straight, but a lot of technical sections, and again climbs, dives and falls, and will suit the Ferrari chassis, which we know is good. And in terms of economy, well, if they can do the same thing there and discipline themselves to make the fuel last, I think Riccatelli is going to have a very, very tough job to hold on to his championship lead. So Dieter Questa, 4th place in points and out of the hunt here now, obviously with only 10 for victory. It would require Riccitelli and Pescatori to take each other out and for Questa to win the race. All right, okay, not out of the hunt yet then. It could happen. All right, fair enough. I opened my mouth and put my foot right. Yes, shake your head if you like. And knock myself right out. So there you go, the Red Bull car having a little moment with the slower of the Ferraris. But still a good race for the NGT cars. Riccitelli doing everything he could to try and combat what they knew was guaranteed to be a fuel deficiency, but in the end it was the economy of the Ferrari that tipped the balance in the favour of Terian and Pescatori. And with tyre dramas on the last lap, Bouchou dropping to 4th place behind Rydell, de Richebourg and Clerico, our top 3 in the GT category. There are our top 3 drivers on the podium, the ProDrive All-Stars and the 2 Belmondo crews. And we will be back live in Jarama in just a moment. We've got action from the 2 Super Touring Car races and the Super Prods still to come, so stay with us.
The FIA GT Championship. With LeasePlan, fleet management in motion. Filatice, stretching fibers, fabrics and yarns.
Yokohama, power of performance.
Welcome back to Jarama. This is the highlights of the first of the Euro STC races this weekend. 4 rounds left in the championship, 2 here, 2 at Estoril, and the title still therefore wide open. Fabrizio Giovanardi leads the points from his teammate Nicola Larini. In 3rd place, Gabriele Tarquini. And the difference is, well, Tarquini is 29 points behind, and as you can see there, Larini is, can't do the math, 7 points behind, is that right? Yeah, 6, 7, 13 hours is about right. So Larini 7 points behind. Those are the championship contenders. Other changes may well happen up and down the order, but it's all about Tarquini versus the Alphas this weekend.
Gabriele, qualifying couldn't really have gone much better for you yesterday with the 3 Hondas in the first 3 positions. Do you have any tactics to keep the Alphas behind you in the first race?
But the only tactics is to be faster than Alpha. I think that my teammate can help me because they can put in the middle between me and Alpha. But the problem is to be fast in the start and all the race. This is the key.
Thank you, Gabriele.
So Tarquini, as he's saying, on the grid with his 2 Honda teammate, 2, yes, indeed 2. James Thompson, the British Touring Car race, brought back into Super Touring. He's been racing the slower British Touring cars this year, and the Super Tourer, bit of a revelation for him, getting back into last year his old car, and joining Fabrice Valfish, who is, of course, Tarquini's regular partner. Thompson 2nd fastest in practice, Valfish 3rd fastest, and behind him is... well, not actually the best of the Alphas. The regular drivers, Giovanardi and Larini, are down the order. The best place to the Alphas. Oh, there's a staller at the start. Staller at the start. And that was Carl Rosenblad in the Nissan, who was 4th quickest, I was about to say, in the practice session. And Felipe Massa, the Formula 3000 driver, goes inside Fabrice Valfish as Valfish is slow out of the first turn. Massa goes ahead of him. Rosenblad gets away very slowly indeed there. Felipe Massa was 5th on the grid, and his teammate Fabrizio Giovanardi 6th, but Nicola Larini was only 9th. But look, there are 2 Alphas there, 3rd and 4th, so either Giovanardi or Larini has gone with Massa ahead of Valfish. Well, further back is the other Nord Auto car. There is, of course, a 4th Nord Auto car, which is Romano Bernardoni, who is towards the tail end of the field. But it's Tarquini from Thompson and a heavily tyre-smoking Felipe Massa, I think it must be, in 3rd place. There is Nicola Larini, Lurini, I don't believe it, from 9th place on the grid, up ahead of Fabrice Valfish and into 4th place. Then Gianluca De Lorenzi in the orange and white BMW, Matt Neal in the red Nissan next up, then Roberto Colciaggio ahead of Fabrizio Giovanardi. Colciaggio down the inside of Matt Neal, just on the edge of the picture. Neal holds on, Colciaggio runs wide. Of course, he's got that four-wheel drive system to try and hold on in front of Giovanardi, but Gio changes to the inside. He's down inside him. Giovanardi picks up the place there. It's all action on this first lap, David.
It is definitely the very first corner we see them going in there. There's a bit of a touch there from Colciaggio. For some reason he's getting himself a bit of a bad name. He's been doing that in the Swedish Championship quite a lot this year. Carl Rosenblad, who stalled on the grid, he was saying that he's had a door-banging session most of the year with Colciaggio, and seems to be carrying it on. And we've got Massa off on the outside, cross. So close to taking his teammate out.
Oh, that would have been a 10-point naught from the Russian judge there, wouldn't it? Massa tiptoeing across the grass and nearly lancing into Nicola Lurini. Well, the more bitter and hardened, let's say, sick and twisted members of the paddock were wondering when Felipe Massa would torpedo Gabriele Tarquini, but he very nearly torpedoed his own teammate there. And there's Fabrice Valfish off as well. Valfish has gone off at Le Mans, the corner that backs onto the paddock. If he'd gone through the tyres there, he would have landed in the team trucks, and that scrambles the safety car. So 3 laps in, Fabrice Valfish in the gravel there. You can see him being recovered and out of the race. Safety car on, and so now the end of lap 4. Safety car is off, and here comes Tarquini, hammer down. Thompson under pressure from Massa. Where's the rest of the field? Gianluca De Lorenzi in 5th place, with Matt Neal almost pushing him out of the final corner. Must have been absolutely fast asleep. What a ludicrous restart from De Lorenzi. Matt Neal will be spitting bullets in the Nissan, and is that, I was going to say, it's Giovanardi ahead of Lurini now. So Giovanardi has really torn up through the order as the cameras were watching the race leaders, and the squeal of tyres from the camera at the first corner. No, De Lorenzi and Neal are still there in 5th and 6th, but no one else is near them. De Lorenzi, David, doing an absolutely shocking job at restarting there.
That was terrible. I don't know what he was thinking about. I mean, the lights were off in the pace car for a whole lap, and we could see what was happening, and he was just miles away. He just wasn't there along with the rest of them. But obviously Matt Neal's had to come together with somebody. You can see the rear bumper hanging off there, and now for some reason Felipe Massa's decided to come in. He was coming back up through the grid from that bad spin that he had, but I think it could be a tactical move by the Alfa Romeo team to pull him in order to get him start a good start to the next race.
Definitely. Tarquini still leading. Massa was down to the back of the field, but came up to 8th before they brought him back in on lap 12. And Matt Neal losing that bumper, I think, probably forcing his way eventually past Gianluca De Lorenzi's BMW. On to the last lap. Still the 2 Hondas, then the 2 Alfa. Oh, dear. They didn't really let Massa out at the right time there. He came in between his teammates almost, rather than between the Hondas, where he might perhaps have been able to, well, not do a little bit of damage, but just put a fly in somebody's ointment. But Tarquini, imperious here from pole position. As he said, the key for him to be quick from the first corner. Certainly the Honda team not resorting to any bully boy tactics, using their extra drivers to punt cars off the track, and the Nord Auto team refraining from that fairly obvious temptation as well. I think they both want to win the championship, and I think they both want to win it clean, these teams, and I don't think they want to get into having ringers just to knock other people off. That's not the way to win a championship. So Felipe Massa, well, you may wonder why bringing him in and dropping him right back to the tail of the field will have been tactical. Well, that's of course because the starting order for race 2 is how they finished race 1, reversed. So the slowest cars in the race, or the slowest finishers, start first, and the winner starts last ahead of all the retirements, of which that will surely be one, Giovanni Giulinelli in the number 10 Conrero Alfa. So Tarquini will start last of all the classified finishers, and in fact it looks as though Felipe Massa will probably be 2 or 3 from the end of the race, having rejoined a lap down. Tarquini wins race 1, Thompson 2nd, and Giovanardi in 3rd place ahead of Lurini. Matt Neal 5th, Gianluca De Lorenzi in 6th place. So job well done there by the Honda team. And the Nord Auto team, well, doing everything they could really, given that Giovanardi qualified in 6th and Larini down in 9th, 3rd and 4th. Not too shoddy at all, David.
No, they did very well. They did struggle, the Alphas, in practice, but in the race they certainly made good use of it, and right up there, right behind the Hondas, giving them a hard time all the way to the finish flag.
Let's hear now from our race winner.
I mean, it was the best situation for us. Unfortunately for me, Wolfish disappeared after 2 laps. I don't know what's happened, but James make a really good job. He know very well the car. He's very quick, so he put me in the safe condition, so I can control the car, the tire and everything. So it was perfect for us. Thank you, Gabriele.
So the only thing that could have been better is he could have had David Leslie instead of Fabrice Valfish in the 3rd car, and he would have stayed on the Let's hear from Fabrice Valfish now, find out what did happen to him.
It was very easy to be second, and just kept the Alphas behind us, and you know, it's great for the team. They've done a fantastic job running the 3 cars, you know, so competitively this weekend. You know, and I think it helps Gabriele massively in the championship.
So Fabrice Valfish clearly looking an awful lot more like James Thompson. Obviously James's effect in the team is already rubbing off on the Frenchman. Thanks very much indeed to our coordination in Paris for that little link. So Fab Gio now leading from Larini and Tarquini, but the gap much closer. Giovanardi 5.25 to 5.16 of Larini, so 9 ahead, and Gabriele Tarquini 5.04, so only 21 behind the leader. And there are 40 for winning each of the 3 remaining races. Coming up after this will be the back-to-front start for race 2 here at Estoril at Jarama. Oh dear, they've put me off now completely. It's all going to pot. Don't forget, if you want to send us an email, the car guys, all one word, at Eurosport.com, and we will try and answer your super touring and super production queries in the next hour of the show. Join us for more in a moment. Eurosport live at Jarama. The super racing weekends continue. Round 9 of the Euro STC. We're ready for the start of race 2 and the back-to-front grid, meaning that Massimo Poggioli is on pole position from Paolo Zadra. The winner of the race, Juan Gabriele Tarquini, down there, and Simon Walster is with him. Let's see what he thinks about the prospects for working his way through the field in race 2.
Gabriele, with the win in the first race, the championship really is now wide open. The start for this second race is going to be crucial. You've got to try and get past either Nicola or Fabrizio.
Yeah, it's true. I think second race is much more important than the first one. In the first one I had the best condition to score a victory, and I scored the victory. James was second, so very good for us, but this is another story.
Thank you, Gabriele.
And David, one of the factors of this year that has produced lots of interest and excitement is this back-to-front grid. The drivers weren't really keen at the start. They said it would take them a long time to work their way through the slower cars, but in fact it has produced some good racing, and they have been able to work their way up the order as well. Let's hear now, if we can, from Fabrizio Giovanardi. The championship leader will start just a couple of places ahead of Tarquini. In fact, right in front of him there on the grid, you can see the 3 Hondas. Right in front are the 2 Alphas of Tarquini, of Giovanardi and Larini. So there is Giovanardi's car. Let's see if we can grab a word with him, find out what he thinks about having the Hondas behind him now.
Fabrizio, you managed to get onto the podium in the first race. Gabriele has just said that he thinks that this second race is going to be even more important. How do you plan to keep Gabriele behind you?
I'm not worried because the car was good in the first race. I'm really confident for the second race. I have to attack, I have to be in front of Gabriele. I think the championship will be near.
Thank you, Fabrizio.
So clearly the car better, David, the Alpha, in the race than it was in qualifying, because they were struggling in qualifying against the pace of the Hondas, but the Hondas haven't got any slower.
No, they haven't. They're very quick. They've had a good weekend here. Their car suits this circuit. It's a very good turn in on the tight corners. There's a lot of these tight corners here. They struggle a little bit. Talking to James, he was struggling a little bit through the really fast corners with the rear of the car, but it's been good from the start, and the Alphas somehow or another have managed to find a little bit extra pace for the race, which is good because it's making it really exciting. rather than having them away down and the grid like they were for the first race.
18 car field, I think. I'm not quite sure. Behind the winner, Tarquini, we have 3 cars. Marcus Gustafsson's Nissan that didn't finish the race, Fabrice Walfisch's Honda, and the car that didn't start, Heinrich Samanchik in his Opel, was having an engine change after the warm-up and so missed the first race, but he is starting right at the back of the grid. So 3 cars behind Tarquini and Thompson, or Thompson and Tarquini, who are the last 2 cars that finished the race on the grid. Can't see the end of the pit lane to see if anybody will join in from there, but it looks unlikely. So there are a couple of cars that won't make the restart. Angelo Lanciolotti and Roberto Colciaggio. Nicola Laurini's car there with damage on the front, hastily, well, not that hastily taped over, but taped over. Sergio Sambataro won't start either. Of the 22 cars that practice, we should have something like a 19-car field, I think. The only question mark is over the number 10 Alpha of Giovanni Giulinelli, who should be starting 4 cars back. I'm having to count this backwards, the grid, from the result sheet, because I haven't published a grid sheet, so I'm not quite sure if he's there. Is that a white Alpha second row back? No, it's not. That's a Nissan's rear end, isn't it? So that is Rosenblad. So Giulinelli not taking the start. We saw him go off at the end of the first race, and although he was classified, I don't think he's restarting. So that is Rosenblad, 4 back, second back on the second row. So no Giulinelli, which means there are, well, count them, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Tarquini is 15th on this grid. Points go down to 6th place. Plenty of overtaking to be done in this race then by these guys. And although it is a tight track, there are a couple of hairpin corners and a couple of well-designed braking areas, David. So passing the slower cars, although it won't be the matter of moments, it's certainly possible, I think, for the fast guys.
It is. They've shown throughout the year they've been able to get past them. And some circuits, certainly some of the very much quicker circuits, like Monza, for instance, they were able to get past them almost within the first 2 laps. I think here at this circuit, at Jarama, it's going to be somewhat different. It's going to take them a little bit longer to get up there. You have, of course, got one of the quicker drivers right near the front, which is the 3rd or the 4th, shall we say, Alfa Romeo of Felipe Massa. Now he's starting 3rd. He's on the right-hand side, 2nd car back from the front there. So he, I think, will be wanting to get out there and simply drive off into the lead. And if his teammates can make it through towards 2nd or 3rd, I'm sure he'll move over towards the end of the race and let them score as many points as possible.
Yes, that's a guaranteed place for them, effectively, and Tarquini has not got Fabrice Walfisch, who didn't finish the race as a classified finisher, in that position right at the front of the field, so he has to make up every place. They are guaranteed to be given at least 1, because whatever else happens, Felipe Massa will pull off and park the car if necessary to allow them to pick up that place, whatever it is that he's holding.
I think what he'll want to do is not to pull off and park, but certainly move over and let one of his teammates through and then pull in behind them to try and put as many points as possible between the Alfa Romeo drivers and the Honda drivers.
Yep.
But then again, that's why both teams have brought in an extra driver to do exactly that thing. So it's a championship that both teams are trying very, very hard to win indeed.
And so far the battle is good and clean and all about speed in the racing. Well, they're on the warm-up lap now. Here is the grid. Massimo Piccioli ahead of Paolo Zadra in his BMW. Felipe Massa, the joker in the pack for Nord Auto this weekend, ahead of Carl Rosenblad, who could well go well here in that Nissan. It's a quick car. Romano Bernidoni, the 4th Nord Auto car, ahead of Moreno Soli, Mikko Lempänen and Eric Kerol. And Kerol might be hard to pass as well. We've seen him have some good races, particularly at Magny-Cours. Sandro Sardelli should also go quickly, ahead of Gianluca De Lorenzi. Matt Neal will be desperately trying to get past the BMW again, but this time from the other direction. And then Larini, Giovanardi, Thompson and Tarquini. They are the key players, really, in this drama, along with Felipe Massa. And, well, Tarquini will have to be very careful about Gustafsson from behind. Shouldn't have to worry about his teammate Fabrice Walfisch. And I don't think Walfisch will be able to be really an awful lot of benefit to him here. And until Tarquini has passed an Alpha, nor really will James Thompson, in fairness. Fabrizio Giovanardi in the number 1 championship-leading Nord Auto Alfa Romeo. He is leading the points at the moment. coming round onto the grid. This reversed lineup for the second of the Euro STC races here, round 9 of the championship at Jarama, just north of Madrid. On pole position, Massimo Poggioli in the Audi, Paolo Zadra alongside him, then Felipe Massa third in that red Alfa. On the right-hand side of the picture is Carl Rosenblad's white Nissan, then Romano Bernardoni, another of the Nord Auto Alfas. So, well, we talked about Massa, but David, of course, that's 2 guaranteed positions there. As we see the cars queuing up to leave the pit lane at the back there, you can see Colciaggio, you can see the Alfa there of, I think 2 Alfas, is there? 2 Conrero Alfas, so that'll be Lancialotti and Giulianelli, both there starting from the pit lane. So, taking Bernardoni into account, effectively that's 2 places that the Nord Auto drivers are guaranteed from the cars ahead of them, because it's their expendable teammates in that position. And again, more Alfas now than before for Tarquini to try and work his way through, effectively solo, because Thompson can only work as a rear gunner. Reds Rise getting ready to go for the start, and it'll be interesting to see how the cars at the tail of the field go. Away they go, and immediately, well, Gianluca De Lorenzi going there, and there's a staller. That's one of the BMWs. That is Moreno Soli. So 1 car less for them to worry about. Massa in second, Bernardoni in fourth, and Matt Neal's off. He's pulled off, and there's, I would think that's probably a drive shaft or clutch failure. Let's see where the Nord Auto cars and the Hondas are, right in the middle of that big glinting pack as they swing through the corner named after Achille Varzi, down to the long left-hander at Le Mans. Oh, lock up at the back, but there are the Hondas on the outside. That must be Tarquini, surely, and I think he's ahead of one of the Alfa Romeos, and Thompson's gone by as well. And there is the 26 car off, and that is...
that's Rosenblad.
Yes, that's Carl Rosenblad.
He'd made a bad start in the first one by stalling it on the grid, and then he was in the same position starting 4th on this one, and has gone off again.
Tarquini and Thompson ahead of both Alfas. Well, I can't see 4 Nord Auto cars there. Here is Tarquini diving down the inside of who, and Thompson is ahead of him. So Thompson is doing the snowplow job, David, and I mean, that's sensible. That's the other... That was the other Nissan that they dived past as well, wasn't it? Who is...
We think it's Bernardoni making a bit of a chicane or a queue at the front, and everyone's queuing up behind us to try and get past.
Well, there is the 3 car of Romano Bernardoni, and inside has gone Gabriele Tarquini with James Thompson. So he's gone past both of them, and I think that is the 2 car. Nicola Larini is between them. Now he's back in front of Tarquini. So Larini is really fighting hard for this one. Who cares about the crowd? We know they're watching. Second of the red cars. That now must be Fabrizio Giovanardi. Yes, it is Giovanardi in 6th place. Then Thompson, Larini and Tarquini in that next little bunch, and has... Yes, I think Tarquini has got past Larini. So Massa leads. I think we can safely discount the BMW of Paolo Zadra fairly quickly. Massa leads. Then the best placed next Nord Auto car is Giovanardi in 6th position. So still plenty of work to work themselves up into those really big point scoring positions at the top of the field. And Tarquini was across the line in 9th ahead of Larini. Thompson was 7th at that stage. And right on the tail of Giovanardi, and we're right with Giovanardi. Having trouble with Gianluca De Lorenzi. This is for 5th place. And De Lorenzi, we saw, was really tough for Matt Neal to pass, and he's not giving Giovanardi any room at all, no favours at all there. Right in front of us, there is Massimo Poggioli's Audi. There it is, right in front of Tarquini. And Giovanardi bottled up behind the BMW. Tarquini now 2 cars behind him, so as Tarquini passed Thompson, it looks as though he probably has, now that they're in sight of Giovanardi. Well, this is a really chaotic race, David. Giovanardi here still can't get past De Lorenzi, and De Lorenzi, we've seen his BMW good enough for 5th or 6th overall, so it's not the slowest car out there. And they're right behind. That is Tarquini, and right in front of him is Giovanardi. So Tarquini right behind the points leader. Then is Thompson further back, and another couple of cars behind him as they cross the line. It's Larini, and look, right behind Larini is Valfish. So Larini in trouble here. Giovanardi is the better placed of the Alfas, as he is in points, as they come across the line.
That's Sardelli with a Nissan, just gone through to 2nd, with Giovanardi following him through. So they are past the BMW. The BMW is now stuck in front of Tarquini, so he's now got that problem of trying to get past. There's Giovanardi going straight past Sardelli, without a problem, and Tarquini straight past the BMW as well.
Well, I almost said that was a big break for Larini getting by there, and Tarquini might be held up, but in fact they've done a good job, both of them there, to pass their respective cars. And as off goes the 16 car, that is Eric Cayrol. So he is back off the grass. And
you did say that he wouldn't be too big of a problem.
I'm not sure that wasn't Nicola Larini nearly sideswiped as he came back on there either. So Massa leads, Sardelli second, Tarquini third.
No, we've got Zadra still second.
No, Zadra's not there. That's Sardelli right in front of us, the Nissan. So is that... Oh, no, you're right, yes, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, first and second for the Alphas.
Giovanardi, then Sardelli, then Tarquini.
Tarquini's fourth.
And right behind Tarquini, well, it's a really fast-changing order. It may even yet be Thompson, or perhaps Di Lorenzi. Di Lorenzi is there as Tarquini goes past Sardelli. What a great race. Whoever poo-pooed this idea of starting them back to front, I'm sorry, it may not be pure motorsport, but it is fantastic, pure racing. This is great stuff. Oh, so 3 laps of frantic swapping of places. Massa, Giovanardi in second, Tarquini right with him in third, Sardelli fourth, Di Lorenzi in the BMW fifth, Zadra in the BMW sixth, Larini in seventh, ahead of Thompson in eighth, Valfish in ninth, and now Thompson and Valfish have got to get ahead of Larini to do some really good points denying here for the Honda team.
We could see there that Di Lorenzi had managed to get past Sardelli. So those two have got their own little championship they're fighting for, like a junior championship that's out there. Sardelli's leading at the moment. He knows he's got to keep on scoring points and not to worry about Di Lorenzi. So with a better luck, he should just simply sit behind him to the finish and collect a few more points towards his championship. But up front here, we've now got these 2 Alfa Romeos. We know Massa will, at the end of the day, move over and let Giovanardi pass in order to give him the maximum points possible, but here in third place and catching, by the look of it, is Tarquini catching Giovanardi.
Well, Giovanardi, now the onboard doesn't show it so much, but he's been using such a bizarre line out of the Bugatti hairpin where we just came out, coming out really tight instead of allowing the car to drift. Now, excellent apexing there by both men through Monza and then through the tunnel turn onto the straight they come. And yeah, certainly the speed of the Honda. The Honda is very good around the front end, David, you're saying, and that seems to be working very well for it here, into the braking areas, through the tight stuff. It's got the advantage under braking and on traction out of the tight stuff, and it can certainly hold its own in the fast corners as we've seen all season. So Tarquini in perhaps the better car. Now, who plays the master tactician game here? He is closing up on Giovanardi, but out front Felipe Massa. And I almost get the impression that Massa is biding his time and waiting for Giovanardi to arrive, because by rights, with his speed in practice, he should be long gone by now.
He should be, but I'm sure he's here to help on a very much a bigger game plan. And if they can let one pass, there he goes. And will Massa come back? No, Massa's been left out, hung out to dry on the outside there. I expected Massa to slip in between the 2 cars to try and take points away from the Honda, but maybe that was just a big mistake and he left far too big a hole there, and Tarquini went through. But Tarquini certainly seems to be the quicker of the cars at this moment in time. So that extra driver that Alfa Romeo brought in seems to be using to his best of ability to try and take points away from the Honda team.
Well, it may be that Felipe Massa made a mistake, but you were expecting him to try and jump in front of Tarquini, and I guarantee that Giovanardi was as well. Now, Giovanardi actually using the wide line out of Bugatti for the first time, but only because Tarquini was inside him. So Tarquini all over the back of Giovanardi, and from umpteenth on the grid, 16th or 15th on the grid, I think Tarquini is just about to take the lead now as they come to start lap 5, 4 laps in. And Giovanardi from Tarquini, maybe not this lap, but the Honda is very, very close indeed.
You can see a very defensive line from Giovanardi down the inside there. Maybe that'll let him wide, and not quite enough room up the inside. He tried so hard, he managed to hit him, did Tarquini there. But Tarquini, you can see he's trying to outstrike him. He's got the headlights on. He switched them on the lap before. We've seen him hit the switch when we were watching from inside the car to just try and take the attention away from Giovanardi to make him look elsewhere, but taking some very tight lines to try and come out the corner a little bit quicker is Tarquini to try and get past Giovanardi. But Giovanardi's been around a long time, he's won championships before, and he'll know how to make his car extremely wide and take that track up and try and keep that first place all the way to the finish. We're only on lap 5 out of can't remember how many laps it is. I think it's 15 laps or something.
Well, he will be a very, very happy man if he can hold off Gabriele Tarquini all the way around, because Tarquini certainly looks to be quicker than the Alphas here. And Giovanardi using all the curb and half the infield there as he came down the hill towards Bugatti. Now again, defensive line, but he runs out wide now to the right-hand side, doesn't he? Because he's defending the run up to Monza, just in case Tarquini can somehow try and scrabble through there. Tarquini comes out wide, now cuts in very tight over the curbing. Really pushing now down this little incline through the tunnel turn. No hint of a lift in these Super Tourers, snicking it up the gearbox with a full power on up change, and he's even closer this time behind Giovanardi as they come across the line. 0.13 of a second. Tarquini right there, Giovanardi on the brakes. Tarquini stays out there, he goes out wide, he'll cut inside Giovanardi again. Giovanardi knows he'll do that, and Tarquini can't find a way through. This is great tactical racing by both men. Tarquini all over the back of the Alpha, showing his nose inside, outside, both sides in the corner if he can, to try and, one, plan a move on Giovanardi, and two, disguise it by not letting Giovanardi know where it is in advance by trying it too many times. And now look at that, out of the hairpin at Farina, how much he closes on Giovanardi under acceleration, up the hill here through the left-hander at Pegaso, and the long climb up through the S's at Ascari. Little lift here, and then full flat all the way up to Portago. Wow, this is great racing. Behind them, Massa still in third. Di Lorenzi holding on to fourth, ahead of Larini and Thompson, fifth and sixth. Then Sardelli and Valfish. Valfish needs to get himself up the order a little. There are Larini and Thompson. And for Tarquini, James will need to get in front of Nicola. And if Gabriele can get in front of Fabrizio here, and that will certainly help his championship struggle, that extra margin.
There's such a fight going on, not only here for first and second as we see, but even for second and third, because Di Lorenzi's really got himself switched on with that BMW, and he's giving Massa a really hard time. He's all over the back of him, trying to get past him.
Fantastic stuff from the race leaders. And we saw that little contact earlier on when Tarquini dived to the inside 2 laps ago at this first corner inside Giovanardi. Giovanardi shut the door on him, and that was a racing incident. One driver going for a gap and the other one denying him. That was not Tarquini thumping him up the backside. Now he's alongside. He had a better run this time. He's inside, and although Giovanardi gives him no room, still he just manages to weave through. But look how much quicker he went in there into Le Mans. He slides wide. Giovanardi can't come down the inside. Farina hairpin. Giovanardi now all over the back of Tarquini, and Tarquini desperately defending as he tries to resettle himself and pull back a little bit to get back into the rhythm that he needs, as he had desperately flown into Varzi too quickly to take that lead. So Giovanardi now second, and it's Tarquini who leads. Massa in third, Di Lorenzi fourth, Larini fifth, Thompson in sixth position. Still the 3 championship contenders in the top 5 positions, and the 2 men they brought in to help them there as well. And Gianluca Di Lorenzi in 4th place with Felipe Massa in front of him. 8 laps into round 9, the second race here at Euro STC at Estoril, if that makes sense. Second race of the weekend for the Euro STC cars. No, it doesn't, I know. Gabriele Tarquini leads, and while we're away at the break, although Fabrizio Giovanardi is in second place, significant changes behind. Felipe Massa, the extra driver brought in by Alfa to try and help Larini and Giovanardi, was in third ahead of Gianluca Di Lorenzi. But they were all being caught by Nicola Larini there and James Thompson. So Felipe Massa pulled over and allowed them all to go through. He's dropped 3 places, doesn't matter. He's not here to win races or score points. He's only here to help his teammates by denying Tarquini points. With Tarquini in the race lead, his job is done. Now his job is to get out of the way of Giovanardi, which he's done, and Larini, which he's done, and allow them to score maximum points on their own recognizance. The problem for Larini is James Thompson behind him, is looking threatening, and the problem for Larini is twofold, because in front of him is Gianluca De Lorenzi, who has a position that Larini would like to score points from. Closer to Giovanardi, closer to Tarquini, limiting the damage of Giovanardi, the points leader, ahead of him, and Tarquini, the man who's chasing, also ahead of him. And we're on board now with Tarquini leading the race.
Yeah, Tarquini seems to have got into his stride. We can see he was actually quicker than what Giovanardi was, and now having got past, he's starting to stretch that lead a little bit. He's now up to 1.8 seconds. So another half a second on that lap he pulled out over Giovanardi. So the real battle now is for a little bit further back. Where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4th and 5th. Larini and Thompson. That's where the battle is at the moment. And Thompson will be desperate to try and get past Larini, just to try and take some more points away from him. And if he can do that, then that will help Tarquini try and get the second place in the championship at this weekend here at Jarama, before we go to the last meeting of the year in Estoril.
Certainly will. And James, who drove this car, of course, so successfully last year in the British Touring Car Championship, now reunited with it for the first time in nearly 12 months, right behind Larini. And Larini is looking, his car's certainly looking a lot more nervous than the Honda. The Honda really seems to be much better planted, as we've already seen. It has better traction, the car, per se. And Tarquini on his last lap, 0.7 of a second quicker than Giovanardi, so he opened up the gap from 1.1 to 1.8 seconds. Thompson, I'm sure, would be quicker than Larini, is quicker than Larini. The problem is he needs to find a way by, and James, having been out of these cars for a year, perhaps, well, I'm not going to suggest that he can't find the limits, but perhaps just not as ultimately confident in it as he might have been had he been racing all season. Still doing an excellent job, and let's face it, Larini has been racing these cars all season. James Thompson is giving him a very serious working over, and is, as I said, probably even quicker. Thompson looking at the inside, yes he is, he's going to, there you go. I just mentioned that he may not have the ultimate confidence in the car and in himself in it, and there he goes, makes a move on Larini, and he's still with him. Now Larini has the advantage up to Le Mans, but through Varzi they go and change places. Thompson gets ahead, and Varzi, I'd forgotten there was a right-hander before the left-hander at Le Mans after the first corner. Now at Le Mans he goes through, so in fact, David, a carbon copy of the move that Tarquini put in on Larini, on Giovanardi to take the lead, where he set it up out of the first turn, made it through the right-hander, and then held on at Le Mans. So, good work.
They certainly seem to have some very good grip on those Hondas on the tighter corners, so that hairpin at the end of the start and finish straight, they can really tuck in tight coming out of there and get out of there and move away. And now we see parked on the side is Sardelli. He's been into the pits once to have something done to the car, I'm not sure what, but whatever it was, it obviously wasn't good enough, and the marshal making some sort of sign to say there's a problem with the steering or something. So that's him out, which is a bit of a pity. He'll lose some points by not finishing this race.
Well, all he needed to do was to stay on track, and unfortunately hasn't been able to do that. And, well, broken steering. Normally in super touring racing you would have to say that is the result of contact with somebody either on the run up to the start or in traffic while fighting. So on board with Giovanardi, and as we turn right here, you will see the race leader in front of him, but disappearing fast into the distance is Gabriele Tarquini. 1:39.3 his last lap, 1:39.7 Giovanardi's last, so Giovanardi's slowing again. And Thompson now, look, how much quicker he is than Larini. He is now 1.3 seconds ahead of Larini, and don't forget he was behind him at this point a lap ago. He's chasing De Lorenzi and catching him. De Lorenzi's last lap, 1:39.5. James's last lap, including passing Larini out of the first corner, 1:39.0. So no question that Thompson is quicker, and I'm sorry for even questioning his commitment or his confidence in himself in the car. He has certainly proved that he has got all the confidence he needs. He's always been an exuberant racer, James Thompson, and is proving to be exactly that here again. Now, he's done a great job by robbing Larini rather of as many points as he can by being in front of him. He will do no real difference to Tarquini's score by passing De Lorenzi, but David, in the remaining 4 laps, that does open up the can of worms that perhaps, just perhaps, he might be able to catch and pass Giovanardi.
he'll be trying very hard, but he's got De Lorenzi to get past first. De Lorenzi, we've seen already, is very difficult to pass. De Lorenzi is actually catching Giovanardi at the moment as well, so he's closed that gap up. So the second, third and fourth cars are actually very close together. But in actual fact, this race we've discovered is 13 laps long, and we've done 11. So here we are coming round now on the 12th, just starting, what I would see is to be the last lap. So very little time left to try and get those positions.
So Tarquini leading, Giovanardi second, De Lorenzi with Thompson right behind him. Now, unfortunately for Tarquini, if for some reason De Lorenzi doesn't finish, that's bad news, because Lorini scores better. So what I'm saying here is, Thompson, if he goes past De Lorenzi, doesn't matter, there's still 2 cars further back, Lorini from, or in fact 4 cars further back, Lorini from Tarquini. However, if Thompson accidentally tangles with De Lorenzi and somehow knocks him off, or God forbid takes both of them out, then Lorini goes from 5th to 3rd in one fell swoop. So for Tarquini's point of view, the best thing that James can do right now is stay where he is and deny Lorini rather than worrying about De Lorenzi. But James, as we know, is a racer, and if he can pass De Lorenzi on the run to the flag, I guarantee he will try and do it. Second is the red car there of Giovanardi. Third is De Lorenzi. Fourth is Thompson. Race leader out front, Gabriele Tarquini, by 2.5 seconds. And now look, De Lorenzi. Now this would be even even better. De Lorenzi there ramming the back of Giovanardi's car. And De Lorenzi is going for second. He wants to take second from Giovanardi. I don't think he'll have the run to the flag to do it. It's too short, the distance out of the final turn. It'll be victory number 2 of the day for Tarquini, but it will be a close run thing. Giovanardi second, De Lorenzi third, Thompson in 4th place, Lorini 5th, and Felipe Massa in 6th position. So a great drive in race 2 by Gabriele Tarquini. Richly deserved victory there. The Honda working well, and Gabriele, the former British touring car champion, using all of its undoubted abilities. Good damage limitation too by points leader Fabrizio Giovanardi and by Nicola Lorini. 5th place, not what he would have hoped for, but it was as well as he could manage in that one. And James Thompson doing a sterling job in that second Eurosport Honda in 4th place. And Gianluca De Lorenzi, well, hats off to him, the top amateur driver, and holding on there for a place on the podium, 3rd place in this race. Wow, time to draw our breath, David, but great job by Gabriele there, no question about it.
Fantastic. He's come out here this weekend. He knew he needed to win 2 races. He knew he needed to score points more than the others and try and get that championship position turned around from being 3rd into reducing the points as much as possible towards the leader. On my quick mathematics that I've done on that last lap while they were going around, I now put it that Giovanardi's got 560 points and Lorini and Tarquini are together on 544 points. So there's only 16 points now separating the top 3 people with 2 races still to go.
And with 40 points for the victory in each of those races. So 80 points up for grabs, 16 points separates the top 3. Even if you're a couple of points out, still a great situation. I have to say, given my mental arithmetic, I wouldn't hold much hope out for the point standings if I'd worked them out, but David has not been wrong yet so far this year. So Gabriele Tarquini with 2 victories here, narrows the points margin and moves into joint 2nd place with Nicola Lorini. And there is the decisive move that gave him victory here in race 2 in round 9 of the championship. The Super Touring cars have done their stuff, and the Super Production cars yet to come. Plenty of different sights and sounds for you here in every Super Racing weekend. The FIA GT race with its wide variety of different makes and models involved in the 2 classes there, the GT and the NGT classes. And of course the Super Tours, again, a wide variety of different machinery, and in Super Production as well, yet more different cars. And David's arithmetic spot on, just as his driving always is. Giovanardi leads by 16, Lorini and Tarquini tied. Well, great stuff by the Eurosport team, and some mighty, mighty exciting racing there in that 2nd race. Well, congratulations there from his amateur team for Gianluca De Lorenzi. And David, those richly deserved as well, I think. He did have the advantage of starting ahead of the others, but in fact he was only 6 from the back, so he was only 5 cars ahead of eventual race winner Gabriele Tarquini. A great drive through the field by De Lorenzi, who's getting more and more combative with every race.
He is. He's been getting better all season, and certainly towards the end he's really been making big strides forward. And in that race, you know, he was right up there, and he was catching Giovanardi towards the end and giving him a real hard time. Absolutely fantastic.
Look, they're talking through it. Giovanardi going, oh, the back of my car was off the ground. Gabriele, he said, look at my car.
2 wins out of 2 for you, Gabriele. The day couldn't have gone much better. It was a fantastic battle you were having there with Fabrizio.
Yeah, it's true. My car seems much more competitive than the car than Fabrizio today. Unfortunately for me, he scored a 2nd and 3rd place, so I don't gain a lot. But it will be a big battle on the last round. This gives more attention to this championship, and I think it will be good.
But you are now, I think after today's results, you have moved up into 2nd in the championship.
I don't know, to be honest, but I want to think race by race. I want to win. I want to win both races in Estoril, and after, if Giovanardi scored the same, it's good. Will be good for Giovanardi.
Thank you, Gabriele.
Well, maybe we'll get a chance to talk to Giovanardi, who has worked hard for his living there, hasn't he? Bathed in sweat. Let's catch up with him, but he clearly very, very appreciative of Tarquini's move there. Really liked that race.
Fabrizio, Gabriele won both races today, but still 2 podiums for you, and you are still leading the championship.
Yes, I still lead in the championship, but I think it was now my weekend. It was good because I didn't lost a lot of points. When we say Gabriele, then the next race will be interesting.
And the battle today, it was a great battle that you were having with Gabriele, but it just seemed the Honda was a little bit quicker today.
Yes, I think it was a great battle, correct battle, but it was impossible for me because just in the acceleration out of the hairpin it was impossible to stay behind him.
Thank you, Fabrizio.
So Giovanardi, David, I think really enjoying that, judging by the grins and the hand signals, reliving that with Tarquini. But as he said, again, you know, it wasn't a vicious, thuggish move. It was going for a gap and being denied it, and they inevitably made contact there. That was always likely to happen down the inside, but great move by Tarquini. That was the couple of laps previously, just touching him, looking for the inside, but Tarquini took 2 victories, and very important victories here indeed. But as he says, if he wins and Giovanardi is 2nd next time out, well, the points stack up still in Giovanardi's favour. But, well, we'll have to await the results at Estoril with interest. There is the move, and that's what left the mark on the side of Giovanardi's car. And, in fact, Giovanardi was watching the back of Tarquini's car, I think, bouncing from those hand signals. Great stuff. Well, we've got more touring car action coming as well. We've got the super production race in a few moments. But our drivers on the podium. On the right-hand side, 3rd place, Gianluca De Lorenzi, the top amateur. On the left is Fabrizio Giovanardi, and of course, the top step of the podium for the double race winner, the man of the weekend, Gabriele Tarquini. And full marks indeed to all 3 men and the rest of the field for producing from sparkling racing. We'll be back with more after the break. Don't forget, we are the car guys at Eurosport.com if you want to email us. Stay with us as we return live from Jarama after this.
Hola, soy Luis Villamil, estamos en el circuito del Jarama en Madrid y vamos a realizar juntos una vuelta con mi Alfa 156 de superproducción.
Well, Luis Villamil welcoming us back to Jarama and taking us for a lap of the circuit in his super production Alfa 156. He's saying at the end of the straight in the Alfa, which is incidentally 2nd on the grid, reaching 220 kilometers an hour, braking hard. It's very bumpy incidentally here at the end on brakes as they just kink slightly left. Down in the Alfa to 1st gear, although James Hansen's BMW, he says, taking it in 2nd gear, so some difference between the cars. Then accelerating hard up to this 4th medium speed right-hander. 4th gear, not too much grip, says James Hansen. And again down to the hairpin at Le Mans, 1st gear for both drivers. Lots of understeer, bumpy on the way in. And 1st gear again here at the apex, accelerating out of the hairpin Farina, and then this long climb. Important to get out of Farina well, because you go uphill a long way and the super production engines not the world's most powerful cars. Flat out all the way up the hill here. And then through the S's at Ascari, 4th gear, flat out on the rev limiter till you get there. Turning into Portago, named after one of Spain's famous Grand Prix drivers, Fond de Portago. Braking very hard before there, car slides a lot, then accelerating hard downhill, little lift on the run down through the left-hander to Bugatti. And Lewis saying the most difficult circuit on the corner because you go in downhill, come out uphill. Very slow and technical, says James Hansen. You can lose a lot of time there. And then Monza, the most important corner on the circuit, perhaps. Late apex on the second part, not the first. And then heading fast down towards the tunnel turn. Flat, just easing your way out there, drifting it wide, perhaps letting it breathe with a full tank. 4th gear and accelerating across the line, changing up as you go. Welcome back live to Jarama, ready for round 9 of the Euro Super Production Championship. And Duncan Huisman, the Dutchman, leading the series here by 7 points from Peter Cox, the long-time series leader. Cox's teammate Norman Seaman in the Ravaglia run team in 3rd place. Tommy Rustad, the Nissan driver, in 4th place. Rustad winner last time out at the Nürburgring. I beg your pardon, he was last time out at the Nürburgring, yes he was. And he has claimed pole position here. Lewis Villamil in 2nd place. Duncan Huisman 3rd on the grid. Gianni Morbidelli 4th on the grid. But Peter Cox only 9th in qualifying. David, Leslie, I think Peter Cox is starting to get a little rattled by Duncan Huisman, and this weekend doesn't seem to have found whatever it is he needs in the car to have some pace around here.
I don't know what's happened this weekend, but certainly, yes, they're very slow qualifying down in 9th place. They're some 1.3 seconds behind the quickest people, so of Tommy Rustad's quickest car. So he's certainly struggling. I believe they've tried to go a little bit harder on their suspension to make it work, but unfortunately it seems to have gone the wrong way for them, and they've slowed it down. So I would have thought the first thing to do was to put it back to square one.
Tommy, the Nissan has shown in the last 2 races that it has a very good straight line speed. Will you be trying to build up an advantage at the start of the race to try and look after the tyres in the heat here in Madrid?
Yeah, I will try to push as hard as I can from the beginning, but it's important to not overdrive because I have to try to save the tires. So, but we have to see. The Nissan, we have a good straight line finish, but we have very good traction, and the suspension is also very good on the Nissan, so we have to see.
Thanks, Tommy.
Well, Tommy Rustad's always been a combative driver, hasn't he? At the beginning of the season, the Nissan didn't have the pace of the BMWs. They've done a lot of work on tuning their induction system, which they say has really made a bit of a change to the engine, and that's just given them the ability to step right up to the mark in the front row of the grid. But I'm mightily impressed with the Alpha here of Lewis Villamil as well, because Villamil and the other Alpha 156 driver, Tobia Massini, have not been really on front-running pace for much of the season, but Villamil doing a great job to plant the car on the outside of the front row of the grid.
He has. This is his home circuit, and he's been right on the top of the tree the whole weekend since he started here with first free practice. He's been the man to beat, basically, and between the two of them, Tommy Rustad and Lewis Villamil, they've been battling it out at the front, way ahead of everybody else. But we were saying before about Tommy, who beginning of the season maybe wasn't as quick. Certainly then, when you watched it, we could see the car was very good, the handling was exceptional, but they were losing out a lot on straight line speed, and that's what they've been working on. And as you said earlier, they've been working on an induction system, and just exactly what we said when we were talking about a GT race, about the Ferrari 550 that ProDrive make. They had done a lot of work on the air intake for the engine, and the same thing has happened here on this Nissan, and now all of a sudden you see it right at the front of the grid, and the grid is very much back to front compared to what we've been watching over the past few races, where we've always seen Peter Cox and Duncan Huisman at the front. Well, Duncan Huisman is still there or thereabouts because he's 3rd quickest. Peter Cox back down in 9th, so quite a change around for the super production cars this weekend.
Yeah, Peter Cox and his teammate Norman Seaman were beginning of season frequently 1st and 2nd in qualifying, and well, there's certainly no white Roberto Ravaglia cars with the German colours on the roof there on the front row of the grid, as you can see. And the field about to be waved away. Away they go. And we'll just dive into a couple of emails. Linda and Peter Sellers would like us to say hello to them and their son Keith, so now I'm sorry we don't do personal greetings on the TV. So for David Leslie's sons, who phoned him up last night and wanted him to say hello to them, I'm afraid he's not going to do that either, and I'm not going to say happy birthday to my wife, because she won't be watching either. So Phil on their way around, and I'll be very interested to see how Villamil goes here in, as you say, his home track, but also I don't know, I haven't had a chance to talk to the Alpha guys, unfortunately, and find out what they've done, but they've certainly done something, because Tobias Massini is right up there as well. 5th on the grid, and his time 146.2, Tommy's 145.4, so he's nearly a second away, but still ahead of the majority of the BMWs. Only Duncan Heisman and Gianni Morbidelli from the CBME team are in front of him as well. And again, Morbidelli, the CBME cars have struggled with it, with essentially an engine difference between them and the Ravaglia and the Carli Motorsport cars. Carli Motorsport running, among other, Duncan Heisman, but also supplying the engines for the Carli cars and for the Ravaglia cars. And I think now that they're also supplying CBME as well. So that evens up the BMW battle there. Now, we had another email. Who was it who asked? Oh, it's our 07879 Irish correspondent who's emailing us from his mobile phone, which is something I've never done yet. Wanted to know, are all the cars last year's cars, as in cars that were introduced into the series when it was introduced last year? Well, the BMWs certainly are. They're the car that was raced last year. The Nissan it's the car that was raced last year. The Alfa is the car that was raced last year. The Alfa 156 at least. But there are a couple of Alfa Romeo 147s, which are a brand new model and therefore a brand new car as well. And there are other manufacturers developing cars. We're right on the cusp now of finding out what happens to super production racing. The next FIA World Council will decide whether it goes ahead for next year or not, so we hope it will. Cars coming round to the grid for round 9 of the European Super Production Championship here at Jarama in Spain. Beautiful, sunny, late summer afternoon. The temperatures mild and balmy for the spectators who have crowded into the circuit will mean that it will be a dry race for the drivers, and that's certainly something that everybody was hoping for after part wet, part dry practice. Tommy Rustad, winner last time out at the Nürburgring in very different conditions, leads them round here. Luis Villamil in second place on the grid, so it's a Nissan and an Alfa Romeo first and second. Restoring some semblance of pride to BMW, Duncan Heisman in third place, ahead of Gianni Morbidelli in the BMW. Fifth place, Tobias Massini in the second of the red Alphas. Sixth place is De Luca in his, Simone De Luca in his Nissan Primera. So the two blue and white Nissans, first and sixth on the grid. Then Norman Seaman with the German colours on top of his car, the white car on the left-hand side. Then Paolo Roberti, the second of the CBME, black and orange BMWs there by the man waving the yellow flag. Then Peter Cox, and pulling up behind him, James Hansen and Tom Ferrier on that row of the grid behind Cox. Ferrier alongside him, Hansen right behind him in those two Edenbridge cars. And unfortunately, for Noel Bradford, no time now to ask James Hansen about his special Zandvoort test. I'm not quite sure what the story there is. They didn't offer that up to us, so there must be something derogatory about James Hansen in there. We'll try and find out for another programme. Revs rise, the lights are on, they're ready to go. It's a long hold, a very long hold by Roland Brunserrider. Away they go now. Great start from Tommy Rustad. Good start from behind De Luca by Paolo Roberti. He comes around him. Not a great start, though, by Peter Cox. Norman Seaman gets away well, but Duncan Heisman down the inside of the Alfa Villamil. It's three abreast, and inside goes Massini, and Cox goes by. Heisman may be out of this race. He's in the gravel, and Roberti is off, but Luis Villamil from the outside the front row of the grid, the man who showed us around the track here in the clip before, and there's further contact behind, and that is Seaman, and that is De Luca, and that is either Hansen or no, it's the 11 car, Tom Ferrier, way out there in the gravel and coming back on, and that is Norman Seaman. Tapped into a spin, spun round wildly there. Villamil in the first corner gravel trap, and David, I sense a red flag coming up because there are cars buried deep in the gravel at the first and second turns. Replay here on the left-hand side, the blue-nosed white car. That is Heisman. Hits Villamil. Villamil hits Roberti, and around Morbidelli rather. Around the inside of them goes the rest of the field, but halfway through the exit of that first turn, contact further up and spins. There you are from that viewpoint. And that was where Norman Seaman got thumped into a spin from behind, I think probably from the slow starting Nissan of De Luca. Off went poor Tom Ferrier to try and avoid him, and through from behind there you saw Duncan Heisman going past there. But there are two cars, or at least one, firmly buried in the gravel at the first turn, one on the run down to Le Mans from Varzi. So I sense perhaps there may be a red flag. Certainly slippery surface flags being shown, but, well, nothing yet at the line.
I think if they can't move the cars very quickly, they will put a pace car out, but I can't see them actually putting out a red flag to slow all this lot down or to stop it. But nowadays they'll try and neutralise races to try and give it a nice safety area for the marshals to work. But we can see here European marshals have a way of working on the circuit while the cars are still racing. So a quick blow of the whistle and they'll all run away, but you can see there, obviously when he was hit at that point and going into that very fast corner, there was some fluid lost at some point or another. And we can see an Alpha going very slowly.
That's Villamil coming back on, but right behind, look, this is the battle with the 10 car of James Hansen and the 1 car of Peter Cox. Now that was all sort of almost under yellows. There's Cox in the 1 car. Behind him I think is Paolo Ruberti. No, it's not. It's Gabellini in the 6 car.
And in front of him is James Hansen.
Yeah,
so
James
Hansen's up to 3rd place, the highest he's ever run this year.
Well, don't forget, those guys were behind both the incidents, dived to the inside of both the incidents that took out the majority of the midfield runners. So across the line, it was Rustad leading by 2.8 seconds from Tobia Massini. 3rd place was James Hansen, 4th Peter Cox, 5th Gabellini, who is the 3rd of the CBME cars, who started 13th on the grid to go to 5th place. You can see how much of the midfield has disappeared. 6th place is Bonaldi, who started in 17th place, last but 1 in his Alpha 147. Then Pegan Anderson, who was 1 ahead of him. Then in 8th place is Tavano, who was 1 ahead of Pegan Anderson. Then Paolo Ruberti is 9th, and well, that's all we've got. We've got 12 cars running still out of the 16 who started. There's Duncan Heisman off the track in the back of the paddock. So Duncan Heisman is out of the race. And so too is Villamil, so is Morbidelli then, so is Norman Seaman, so is Paolo Ruberti, and so is the Nissan driver De Luca. And there are still, no, there is De Luca. And he is coming back past, that'll be Beckers. Beckers, the Dutch driver of the 3rd Carly Motorsport car, Belgian driver rather of the 3rd Carly Motorsport car. The number 15 is Peter Beckers. And David, this is actually ridiculous. Now, unfortunately for the organisers, it is on live pan-European TV, 54 countries, 17 languages, umpteen million viewers, and so red flagging it now really would be a disaster for the drivers, because they would have to restart it, and undoubtedly we would lose the end of the race to live TV. However, cars everywhere, a trail of oil right in the middle of the line, almost forcing them to drive on the grass on the inside. It's a big potential for disaster still.
It is. They've got 1 car, Norman Seaman's car, they've got to move. And I think if they're struggling to move it, they need to throw out a safety car in order to neutralise the race and get that out of there safely. And after that, they can carry on after the safety car pulls in. The only other problem is that water or whatever it was that was dropped onto the circuit. Well, that's got some concrete dust on it, and the drivers have managed to get past it one way or another. We could see initially Tommy Rustad driving almost through it, but Tommy Mancini we're looking at here with the back of the car very, very braid in indeed. He was diving very much to the inside, to dive down the inside and try and miss as much as possible, cutting across the nice green curbs. So I don't think that'll be a big problem. That will disappear quite quickly. The only problem the organisers have at this moment in time is to try and shift that car on Norman Seaman's, which is just right on the edge of the circuit, just where you don't want it to be, the sort of place that cars do fall off. Of course, that's why it's where it is.
Exactly,
that's why it fell off.
Exactly right, yes.
But that's the only thing they need to do at this moment in time, to get that 1 car moved, and the rest of the cars are in a place of safety anyway.
Now, Peter Cox in 4th place. This is really a big break for Cox, because Duncan Heisman was way up ahead of him on the grid, the man who leads the championship. But Heisman out of the race, as we've already seen, not circulating anymore, parked at the back of the paddock. Cox only 3rd place at the moment, 4th place at the moment. Maybe that's all he can manage. but still it's points, and he knows that Heisman will get none, and there is only a 7-point difference between them. It looks as though the championship should now swing back in Peter Cox's favour, but we've already seen them drive through some debris or through some carnage, possibly through some debris. There might be a puncture of a radiator or something we don't know about. He may be struggling with climbing temperatures we don't know about. And the other thing, of course, is that the race is not over. He may yet catch James Hansen, try and make a move on him, and who knows what will happen then. But at the moment, certainly, Cox is the man who came off best in terms of the championship from that one, because he survived unscathed.
Well, I hope it stays where he is, actually, and finishes fourth. I'd like to see James Hansen finish third, and if that happens, Peter Cox will score 10 points. That'll put him 3 points ahead of Duncan Heisman, and that will make it a really close race going into the very last round, and whoever finishes in front basically will be the winner of the championship when it gets to the last round. And I do love it when we go all the way to the last round for the championship. And here you can see them still trying to put some concrete dust down on those, whatever fluid that was that came out of the cars that were damaged on the first lap.
Well, they're working hard while the cars are away, and luckily the field is relatively small and semi-decently bunched, that they get about a minute or so to run out there, scatter the concrete dust, and then sweep it and run back in. There's the order: Rustad, Massini, Hansen and Cox, then Gabellini and Tavano. And Tavano in the 21 car, what a great run. Salvatore Tavano in the Alfa 147, the Conrero Alfa. He started in 12th place, right behind James Hansen, and like Hansen went to the inside on both incidents and avoided that damage. But here is our race leader, and this is really a shame for Tommy Rustad, because we've hardly seen him, paid him almost scant regard, because he was driving away from that at a phenomenal rate even before the incident happened in the first corner.
He made a very good start. He got off the line as quick as anyone. Usually the BMWs are a little bit quicker, the front-wheel drive cars off the line, but Tommy made a superb start, got to that first corner, got round without being involved in any of it at all. It was only when Duncan Heisman dived up the inside and managed to squeeze Luis Villamil into Gianni Morbidelli, and you had those three cars going off on the outside, causing the rest to have a bit of a problem. And then at the following corner, somehow or another, somebody seemed to turn Norman Seaman around, which caused an awful lot more problems. And from there, we've now got the what I think is a fantastic race, because it's turned it all upside down, and we don't have the winners we've had in the previous championship with the BMWs walking away with it like we've seen at the very beginning. The BMWs have very much been pushed back now into third and fourth. James Hansen, as we said earlier, the highest he's run so far in third place. If he can finish in third, it'll be his first time on the podium in this championship, and it'd be great for him.
And he is pulling away from Peter Cox. Peter Cox, the long-time series leader, former front-runner, pole sitter, race winner. James Hansen last lap 147.6, Cox 148.7. So what we were hearing and seeing from Cox's car on board was represented by the fact that Hansen was pulling away from him and driving away. So Rustad leading by 8.5 seconds from Massini. Massini 2.5 in front of Hansen, and that gap coming down because Tabea Massini's last lap 149.0, James Hansen's 147.6. To say that Hansen has got the bit between his teeth, I think, is to slightly underplay the hand at the moment. James Hansen is absolutely charging. This battle is next up. Gabellini, the black and orange car, then Tavano, the little red Alfa 147, such a sexy looking road car, and then Paolo Roberti next up in the 7 car. So that is for 5th, 6th and 7th. And Tavano giving a very good account of himself in this little Alfa. New car at the beginning of the season, the Conrero team developing it as they've raced it. Basically, it was absolutely untested at the first race in effective terms. And now look at it, it's right in the middle of the CBME BMW battle. And what CBME don't know about BMWs really is not worth writing on the back of a postcard. So he's doing a great job here. And again, I think like James Hansen, being in a good battle like this, really giving him the encouragement, Salvatore Tavano, to get in there and try and go for the top half dozen.
Duncan, you looked furious when you came back into the pits then. You've had a little bit of time to calm down now. What was your view of the incident?
Oh, I don't know. I was on the inside for the first corner. I was not early on the brakes, but safe on the brakes for the first corner because Villamil was already turning in, and then I got pushed in the back, but really hard. I think that the difference was maybe 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers.
I don't know what happened, who was behind me. I think Massini was. But I saw some rear damage at Massini's car and a lot of damage on Simon's car. So I think Simon didn't even brake, something like that I think happened. My wheel broke. Okay, for Cox it's okay for the points. Thank you, donkey.
Well, Heisman, definitely the man on the inside of that three-car sandwich, but as he says, they all drifted out wide, and he got a thump up the backside, and I'm sure it only takes a small look at his car to confirm or deny the truth in that one, so it's not the easiest thing to sort of make up off the top of your head and hope that people will believe.
He was saying that he got hit up the back with a difference of 40-50 kilometres an hour. That's awfully big speed, and he thought it might have been Massini. But if you look at Massini's car, there's no damage to the front of that at all, so I don't think it was him, but certainly somebody took a 30 or 40 mile an hour hit into the back of Massini, because the back of his car has taken a thump, but certainly not the front.
Well, we did see an awful lot of damage on the front of the Nissan of De Luca, and that may not necessarily all have come from spinning Norman Seaman, so maybe De Luca was the guy who missed his braking point. Back live, 8 laps into round 9 of the Euro SPC, or nearly 8 laps into round 9 of the Euro SPC. Tommy Rustad leading here at Jarama by a very comfortable margin. Rustad on pole position by some margin as well, and he was over 1/10 of a second quicker than his rivals, or his closest rival, Luis Villamil rather, and survived the first corner shunt by making an electrifying getaway in the Nissan. Major crash at the first corner, and through the second corner of the race has decimated the field. It's eliminated at least a third of the runners and getting on towards half, and here we see the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th. Gabellini, the lead BMW here, and right behind him Tavano and Ruberti squabbling over 6th place. Tavano in the Little Red Alfa 147, and in 7th place is the number 7 car, appropriately enough, of Paolo Ruberti. Now, their teammate Gianni Morbidelli, one of 3 cars that went off into the dirt in the first corner. We've heard just before the break from Duncan Heisman, who got hit, he says, heavily from behind. He was on the inside of 3 cars, and as he got hit, he went wide into Villamil, who went wide into Ruberti, and all 3 of them effectively, not into Ruberti, into Morbidelli, and all 3 of them effectively out of the race on the spot. They in fact all retired within half a lap or so. And we were speculating, David, that possibly the very heavily frontally damaged Nissan of De Luca may have been the car that completely missed his braking or got his wheels on the curbs or on the dirt or something. As the road kinks up left here or right here, as the driver sees it, into the first corner and came across the curbs, and conceivably may well have triggered all that lot off, but whatever, all those cars now safely dragged away, and the race continues, and good little battle going on here.
This is definitely the best battle that's out there at the moment, and this little Alfa Romeo I think is absolutely fantastic. As you said earlier, they turned up at the first meeting this year with a car just built, totally untried, totally untested, and they've done little or no running during the year in between the races. They've turned up at every race, and every race they've tried something new, they've tried a little bit more, and they're really getting the car to go well now. And here we are, we're running in 6th place. You know, Tavano's out there and he's got 2 teammates, one either side of him, giving him a really hard time, and he's managing to pressure and try and move forward. And I reckon that before the end of the race he could get past Gabellini and end up in 5th place.
Well, they're seesawing about in that little battle, aren't they? First he'll be attacking Gabellini, and then he'll have dropped back from that, having made an unsuccessful lunge, and he'll be under assault from behind, and it's sort of, he yo-yos up and down between the 2 CBME BMWs. It's very entertaining indeed. Tommy Rustad, our race leader, we just saw, now 10.8 seconds ahead of Tabea Massini in the I'm going to say Honda, because that's what he raced in Britain last year, but I don't mean that, I do mean Alfa Romeo. Third is James Hansen, 1.2 seconds behind Tabea Massini, and 6 seconds now ahead of Peter Cox, and there is the gap, second to third. So James Hansen absolutely tearing around here. Peter Cox way back in 4th place, but Cox actually losing ground, David, to the guys behind him. Not on this lap, by a second or so he was quicker, but he is only 5 seconds ahead of the 3-way squabble we've been watching, and if they settle down even for a couple of laps and pick up some speed, we're only completed 9 of the 18 laps. Cox could be in trouble, and although Heisman in his interview said, okay, it's good for Cox now, he gets some points, he will still get some points, but he needs, if he can, to stay away from those two BMWs in the Alpha, because if he gets embroiled in this as the Alpha gets in front of the BMWs, if he gets caught by this bunch, who knows, he may finish at the tail of the three of them, and that really would be a disaster plucked from potential success.
It would be. I would think he'll be trying very hard to just hang on and keep the pace he can. These three are certainly fighting amongst, well, were fighting amongst themselves. Tavano's managed to get himself a bit of a gap and get away from them, so that's exceptionally good for him. But right up behind them now, behind Gabellini and Roberto, you can see Anderson coming up with his Carly Motorsport car, and right by him Tom Ferrier. Tom Ferrier was one that we've seen going off across the gravel trap with the foot hard buried into it to try and make sure he can come out the other side and get there. But we look at the little Alfa Romeo now, and he must have had some damage at some point, because it looks like one of the bonnet pins on the left-hand side of the front of the car is broken, and you can see the bonnet just open a little bit on the left-hand side. Very good for cooling the engine, but not very good for his aerodynamics. Hopefully he can make up for it during the slower part of the circuit and continue to pull away from those two BMWs.
And yes, we did notice that Paolo Roberti has passed Stefano Gabellini in the subsequent corner just after they've been passed by Tavano, but since the camera pictures were so clear, we thought that we'd carry on talking about what we were talking about and you would notice it yourselves. So just to recap then, Rustad leading comfortably, Massini now 11.7 behind, because he's still reliably lapping 6 or 7 tenths slower than Rustad. Third, James Hansen now 1.2 behind Massini, so the gap stabilising there. Massini responding to the threat from behind. There you see them. Fourth place, Cox, and now Tavano 5.8 behind as opposed to 6.6. So that gap is narrowing, fourth to fifth. Tavano is definitely closing. Roberti and Gabellini 6th and 7th, with Anderson 1.3 behind Gabellini in 8th, Ferrier 0.6 behind in 9th. So another good battle developing there, four-way squabble. And for the Edenbridge team, well, they must have been disappointed to see Tom Ferrier skating across the gravel out of Varzi around the first lap. However, they are on for their best aggregate result of the season so far, with James in third, even if Tom is still down in 9th. I'd be surprised if he's only in 9th by the end of the race, and I'd be surprised if James is only in third as well. Notice the way that Tabea Massini's Alfa now is starting to lock its braking wheel. The left-hand front does all the work here. It carries the load in the fast left-handers, of which there are a number, and it does all the hard braking into the slow right-handers, of which there are a number, or it's the one that gets unladen, shall we say, and has all the stress as it potentially locks up. That's exactly what's happening now to Tabea Massini. As they come across the line, he's done a 1:48.0, James a 1:48.8, so yes, Massini is responding, and perhaps that lock-up just an indication of how hard he is pushing now. Maybe James having a breather for a lap or so, having been so close in his charge up behind Massini, just regathering his thoughts. There is Peter Cox fourth, but David, if the camera stays on the corner, no he doesn't. Another...
You can see the cars behind. Yes, they're all catching. They are all catching Cox. So with another 7 laps of this race to go, there is a possibility that they could actually get there before the finish. Cox is losing approximately half a second or slightly more per lap to the people behind him. So just one mistake on top of those lap times that he's already doing, and all of a sudden he could have another 4 cars on his tail, and that would really upset his points. I think I'm sure by now he'll have worked out where he is, and the fact that Duncan's not there, and if he can stay there, he'll retake the lead in the championship, and if he can do that, then he'll walk away a very happy man, but left with the very exciting battle of seeing what happens in the last race when they go in there only 3 points apart.
That'll be great fun. Looking forward to it. And Estoril, I hope, will produce, well, maybe not quite so much first corner carnage, but a similarly exciting race. It is a fast track in places. It has technical elements around the back, very much like Jarama. In fact, not wildly different in its layout at all. And like Jarama, David, as well, dives, climbs, there's, you know, uphill hairpins and downhill braking areas into slow corners, and all sorts of variety as well. It really is a very, very exciting track to drive, and I'm sure the super production cars, a little heavy, a little narrow tired, you know, not as quick as the super production cars in terms of engine power and so on. I'm sure they will produce an exciting race. Here's James Hansen's teammate Tom Ferrier right on the back of Pagan Anderson. Megan Anderson, the only Carly Motorsport, no, he's not quite the only Carly Motorsport car left, because Beckers, the Belgian Peter Beckers, is there in the second of the 3 Carly cars, but of course Heisman gone and long since. Now Rustad, what's he doing to his lap pace? 1:47.7 last time round, and the fastest of the rest of the field, a pair of 1:48.1s by Peter Cox, interestingly, and Tabea Massini in 4th and 2nd place respectively. So Rustad's still comfortably quicker than anybody else. He's got a 12.5 second lead, and he's not easing off at all, is he?
No, he's not. Tommy said in his interview at the very start what he had to do was get out there, look after his tyres, and drive a controlled race towards the end. And it certainly looks as though that's exactly what he's done. He was out there. It was made much easier at the beginning for him by the accident that happened right behind him at the first corner, and another accident at the second corner, which spread the field out behind him. So that gave him time, so he can do what he wanted to do, really. He had the quickest car. He was on pole position, and he was able to go out there and position that car on the circuit where he wanted to, look after it, made sure that he used all the road and didn't have any understeer, any oversteer, and looking after his tyres, been able to control the whole race from the front and drive at a pace that was certainly pulling away on every single lap so far.
Again there into that downhill Bugatti corner, we saw Tabea Massini locking a wheel. Let's see what that does to his lap time. Last lap 1:48.140, this lap 1:48.458, and James Hansen behind him half a second quicker, 1:48.054. So give or take 4 thousandths of a second, he was 4/10ths quicker than Massini on that one. Gap closes back down to 1.7 from 2.1 seconds. So again now James, okay, had a couple of laps to concentrate on it. Here we go, now is the assault. And Massini within shooting distance, David, certainly with now on lap 14 of 18, not out of the bounds of possibility that James can catch him and maybe make a move for second place, particularly encouraged, I should think, by that long trail of smoke as he went down into Bugatti, because the Alfa driving with its front wheels and braking with its front wheels, probably using its front tyres harder than the BMW. Of course, the rear drive BMW with that slightly better balance. And here, Pegan Anderson now with Paolo Roberti, and right behind him is Tom Ferrier. In fact, that's Stefano Gabellini, of course. Gabellini, Pegan Anderson and Tom Ferrier right there. And this is the battle, 7th, 8th and 9th. So that could go any way, including pear-shaped, if they're not very careful.
Well, we've seen the BMWs do that already so far in this race, so I can't see why it should change later on the race as it did in the first part.
One of our viewers at home has been, Mr. E.A. Ratcliffe, has been rewinding his video of the race and has already said, looking at the incident again, says, I can see that his steering was broken, Heisman's, prior to the 3 cars actually touching together and going off. Well, since we're unfortunately watching it, well, not unfortunately, since we're watching the live pictures, we haven't had the chance to do that, but that's very interesting. That may be one for review later, I think, to see just how that happened. Maybe he got thumped over the curb so hard that the steering had gone and he lost control. Maybe he also got hit from behind as well. He certainly seems to have felt the thump. Pegan Anderson under pressure from Tom Ferrier here, and Gabellini breathing a sigh of relief, I think, perhaps, as they come towards the line. Behind them, incidentally, is Di Luca in the number 4, Simone... Oh, no, it's not. No, there's an Alfa in there. That will be Villamil a lap down. Right, so that's Lewis Villamil there, and then De Luca way back there in the heavily damaged Nissan, which, despite all that frontal damage, David, has preserved its water intact.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it's still going, actually, because it did destroy the front of it, so whatever little air dam there was at the front is gone, and whatever damage at the back we haven't seen so far. I'm sure I would have expected it to expire before now, but obviously an extremely sturdy machine, and they're going for it, as are these, as Pegan Anderson is here. Oh, just a little too far. And Tom Ferrier just managed to scrabble around the back and gain another place. So he dived down the inside, locked the front wheel up, hit the curb very hard, started to come out, put the power on just a little bit too much, got the back end out, round it goes. And yeah, Tom Ferrier very lucky there just to round the outside, and it spun the right way.
Well, I'd say good judgment by Ferrier. He saw that happening. Look, he had 2 wheels on the dirt even before Pegan spun. Good job, Tom. Well done. Pegan Anderson recovering from his spin, which has dropped him out of that battle for 7th place. Behind Stefano Gabellini is now Tom Ferrier, but some way behind, I fear, because Ferrier taking excellent avoiding action as he saw Pegan Anderson fly over, or really bounce over the curve very heavily and then start to slide. I wonder perhaps whether it's as big a curve as that on the inside of the first turn, and whether perhaps Heisman might have damaged his steering by bashing into it. I wouldn't be surprised if Pegan Anderson's steering wheel is a way off centre by now, and car probably a lot more inclined to turn right than left, I should think. However, Tommy Rustad, our race leader, 15 laps completed. He's on lap 16 of 18. And incidentally, his teammate, who we were noticing earlier in the damaged car, in 9th place now, Simone De Luca, in the other Nissan, the sister car, despite the fact he's been substantially smashed in the front. Not only has it maintained all its water, it's maintained most of its speed. He was only 0.8 of a second slower than the race leader on the last lap. And as we know, Rustad is absolutely the fastest man on the track and has been on every single occasion. Although he's now backed off and is only 0.3 of a second or so slower than this battle for 2nd place, Tobia Massini versus James Hansen. And only 1/10 of a second between them on the last lap. They're now a second apart. Tobia was just 1/10 of a second quicker than James last time round. 2 laps to go after this one. Tobia's still in trouble under braking. James knows if he can get close enough, there is a good place to overtake David. And in fact, you know, down into the first corner, or down into the Le Mans corner as well, down into the Farina hairpin maybe, anywhere where there's heavy braking. But it's getting close enough on this lap to set it up for the last lap, and I'm not too sure that he's going to be able to do that.
He's been there or thereabouts, and that 1 or 2 seconds apart most of the race now, and as hard as he's trying, he just doesn't seem to quite get right onto his tail. But what he needs to do is get right onto his tail and then just hassle him for a little while to try and make a mistake. As I said earlier during the GT race, if you can get right on someone's tail, switch the lights on, you can distract them a little bit, and that will give you some, hopefully give them the distraction to make a mistake and you pick up the place. But he just can't quite get right onto his tail. Having said that, it now looks as though he's about half a second away, as opposed to the 2 or 2 seconds that we've seen for the rest of the race.
Well, he was only 0.8 away at the line, and you're right, look how much he has closed up now. I said he had the bit between his teeth earlier as an understatement, and that it's very much the case now. He is probably around 4 or 5 tenths behind now. I wouldn't say that was 0.8 of a second. And again, the advantage for the BMW here, the life in its tyres, particularly under braking, I think, and accelerating out of those slow corners. 2 to go as they crossed the line last time. They are on the penultimate lap now, but Massini really asking an awful lot of his tyres, and now look how close he's coming. That is James Hansen really pushing very hard indeed. Massini again locking up down towards the Bugatti corner. Again James takes 1/10, maybe 2 out of him in that moment alone. And Massini, as they come onto the last lap, will be lucky indeed if he can finish in 2nd place. There is Tom Ferrier in today. Is that Tom Ferrier? That's Tom Ferrier with behind Lewis Villamil, and the camera cutting between the two of them. So Villamil, in fact, is a lap behind anyway, so Ferrier doesn't need to worry about him, although he would like possibly to get by and, well, chase Stefano Gabellini in front of him, who is 7th. But across the line, Tommy Rustad leads by 14.5 seconds. Now, Tobia Massini, well, still 0.8 of the line ahead of James Hansen. White flag lap then, final lap. The sun's setting now in the hills north of Madrid, in the centre of Spain, the capital of Spain, and we're just some 25 kilometres north of the city at the village of San Sebastian de los Reyes at the Jarama circuit. And this battle for 2nd place, a battle of wits and tactics, looks as though it may still be Tobia Massini's to give away. James Hansen unable really to close enough. He had a good lunge down there into Farina, and that's cost him. Further back, his teammate in an identical looking battle, but not for position here with Lewis Villamil. Villamil knocked off in the first corner and a lap down, but Tom Ferrier, I'm not sure if he's aware of that, because it really looks as though he thinks he's fighting in for position. So however, Feria fighting hard there, but it would be much more interesting for us to see the battle for second place between Tabea Massini and James Hansen. They must almost be now coming down towards the Bugatti corner. Here out of Portago, or into and out of Portago, comes our race leader Tommy Rustad. He will make it round safely, of that I have little doubt, so let's hope that the director has the intelligence to go back. Well, in fact, that was actually Monza and out of the tunnel turn, so I'd misestimated how much far he was ahead, and if there is a move for second, we're not going to see it. Tommy Rustad wins round 9 of the Euro SPC, and in second place across the line comes Tabea Massini. James Hansen in third place. A fine result for both young men, and a great result too for Tommy Rustad, the Norwegian dominant in his Nissan Primera in qualifying. Didn't put a foot wrong in the race. Fourth place and salvation, I think, in this race for Peter Cox, with Duncan Heisman way up ahead of him on the grid, failing to score after going off in the first corner, and Rustad receiving a little wave of congratulations there, I think, from James Hansen. Hansen will be delighted with his first podium finish of the year, the first for Edenbridge Racing, and very well deserved indeed. So Peter Cox came here trailing by 7 points, goes away leading by 3 in his battle with Duncan Heisman for the championship. Norman Seaman does not score and therefore is in trouble, because Tommy Rustad was only 11 points behind him before the start of the weekend, and I think Tommy Rustad will become the third place man in the championship courtesy of that win. So, another breathless race, certainly right at the start there. Great stuff indeed from the Super Production drivers. Confirmation of the result of round 9 of the Euro SPC. Tommy Rustad in the Nissan winning comfortably, in the end backing off to win by only 11.5 seconds from Tabea Massini. James Hansen third, and a good battle for that. Cox salvation in fourth place ahead of Tavano in the Alpha 147, and I bet there's some partying in the Conrero Alpha squad this weekend after that one. What a great result for them. Sixth place Paolo Ruberti, and I think that may be his best result of the season as well. He's had a pretty tough time in the CBME car, ahead of his teammate Stefano Gabellini, with Tom Ferrier in 11th, Pegan Anderson 12th, Bonaldi in, I beg your pardon, Pegan Anderson 9th, Bonaldi 10th. And here is the standings then. Heisman now 3 points behind, as we said. Tommy Rustad moves ahead of Norman Seaman into third place in the championship, staging a great second half of the season, come back from disappointments early on in the season. James Hansen now up to 9th in points, teammate Tom Ferrier in 12th. Well, that's how they finished after round 9 of the Euro SPC here at Jarama. So a busy, frenetic weekend, and a very busy 3 hours. Thank you very much for your company. Thank you for staying with us, for your comments and your thoughts by email. And we'll be looking forward to doing it again in 3 weeks' time. David Leslie off next weekend to race in his super touring career in the States. So we wish you the very best of luck there at Road Atlanta, David, a track you've never been to, but I'm sure you will enjoy thoroughly. And join us again as we rejoin the action here in 3 weeks' time, the final Eurosport Super Racing Weekend, the weekend of the 20th and 21st of October from Estoril in Portugal. Another great racetrack, and we were looking for more exciting action. Don't forget, highlights of the weekend on Wednesday evening in the Super Racing Weekend magazine. Join me for that. Until then, from David Leslie, from the rest of the crew here on site, it's me, Martin Haven, saying bye and thank you for watching. Bye for now.
The Eurosport Super Racing Weekend.
Yokohama, power of performance.
with lawn comfort, garden furniture. A look at what's next on Eurosport. And coming up later on